Death and the Dancing Footman by Niall Marsh. Dramatised for radio by Alan Downer. With Nigel Graham as Chief Detective Inspector Roderick Alleyne, Lawrence Payne as Jonathan Royle, and Stephen Pacey as Aubrey Mandrake. Death and the Dancing Footman.
Roddy?
Yes, my dear?
Do switch off the wireless. I'm painting the rector's lower lip, and all that gloom is making his mouth droop at the corners.
Sorry, Troy.
Yes, I think I've heard enough, and if the rector doesn't mind... Right, then. Just look at that snow. We won't be able to stir from the house in this, that's if it keeps up.
It's an ill wind. You said you wanted a quiet holiday.
I'm afraid it will keep up. The sky looks full of it. Oh, Troy, I'm so sorry.
That's all right, Rector. The portrait's finished.
Oh, is it? May I look?
Please do.
Oh, my word.
Do you like it?
It's quite splendid. And most flattering.
Roddy?
Oh, yes, I like it very much. Hello, what's that?
What's what?
The car struggling outside in the church lane.
Really? Oh, good heavens. Whoever it is must have taken leave of his senses. They've cleared the lane as far as the first turning. After that, it's thick snow.
Look, it stopped at your gate, Rector.
Oh, dear me.
Man's got out.
He's coming this way.
Well, it can't be for me anyway. Nobody knows I'm here.
He's in a great hurry, whoever he is.
The car's driven away.
Oh, he's seen us. He's coming towards this window. Excuse me, I'd better let him in, I suppose.
What is going on? Oh, it's that playwright, Roddy. Aubrey Mandrake. You remember?
Oh, the chap with the gammy leg. Yes, so it is.
He looks worried. There must be something wrong.
Alleyne, thank God you're here.
Mandrake.
Mrs. Alleyne.
Hello.
Rector, I'm Aubrey Mandrake. How do you do?
Indeed.
Look, I'm so sorry to disturb you like this.
Not at all.
We've just driven over from Highfold.
You're staying with Jonathan Royle.
Yes, he's giving a weekend party. And I'm afraid everything's gone wrong.
Wrong? How?
There's been the most appalling tragedy. Alleyne, we've come to ask for your help.
You detestable young man. How did you know I was here?
Word gets round quickly in these parts. You know how it is.
Only too well.
It's a case of murder.
What?
Murder? Oh, dear. But who?
You may know the Compline family, Rector.
Oh, they live over at Penfelton. Yes, it's a little outside my parish, but it's not Mrs. Compline, surely. Oh, she's a most kind and generous lady.
No, it's one of her sons.
Oh, appalling.
But now she's desperately ill. She's taken an overdose of Veronal. Alleyne, if we don't get back to Highfold quickly...
Mandrake, it's really none of my business. You must telephone the chief constable.
We've tried. The wires over Cloudyfold are down.
And with your permission, Rector, I'll try from here.
I'm afraid you won't get through. Great Chipping's miles to the north, and...
I'll get through even if I have to wade to Great Chipping.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Alleyne. I can see he's not very happy about all this.
Not really. He was hoping for a quiet week's holiday.
I'm afraid there simply wasn't anything else we could do.
He'll do his stuff, I expect, if asked by the local police. CI people don't, as a rule, just nip in and take a case wherever they happen to be.
Operator.
Red tape. Murderers can ramp about country houses. Women can take overdoses of Veronal.
Oh, poor Mrs. Compline.
I drive through snow and ice to bring help and effect an arrest, and then at the last, everything gets bogged down in red tape.
Oh, I doubt if it'll be quite as bad as that.
Well, then give me Whitehall 1212.
If you'll excuse me, I'll pack my husband's bag.
You think he'll come?
Oh, yes. He'll come.
Extension 369, please, and quickly.
Oh, my dear Mr. Mandrake, please forgive me. Sit down. You must be exhausted. Yes.
Thank you. The roads are a nightmare. We've been driving since breakfast.
A drink?
Oh, whiskey, please, if you have it.
Oh, of course. And you must stay to lunch.
Oh, you're very kind, Rector, but there simply isn't time. Miss Wynne will be returning shortly from the chemist's. We were given a list of items to get for Mrs. Compline, all very urgently needed.
Miss Wynne?
Yes, another of Jonathan Royle's house guests. She very pluckily accompanied me on the journey over. She and James Bewling, one of the gardeners at Highfold.
Oh, yes.
He came in case we had to dig ourselves out. Fortunately, his services were not required. The roads are just about passable, so far. No sign of it letting up, though.
Packed lunches then for 4, eh? You can eat them in the car. Oh, your whiskey.
Oh, thank you. Most kind.
Okay. Goodbye.
Ah, Elaine, what news?
I couldn't get through to Great Chipping, as you predicted. But I've spoken to Scotland Yard, and they'll get hold of a doctor, commandeer a car, and ginger up a road-clearing gang. And my colleague, Inspector Fox, will come up by train.
Excellent.
Also, I've rung my atrocious superior, and he's all for my taking over the case, blast his eyes. So there's nothing for it but to go. At least I've got my camera. I'll phone the local chemist for iodine and whatnot.
Well, he can give it to Cloris. Miss Wynne, if she's still there.
Ah, yes, why not? I'll phone through straight away.
I've thrown some things into a bag for you, Roddy.
Ah.
Pyjamas, dressing gown, shaving things.
Good. And can you let me have a soft brush, and some scissors and some bits of charcoal?
Of course. I'll look them out for you.
The rest, I'll have to trust Brer Fox and Co. getting through by train.
Well, swathe yourselves in sweaters and topcoats. Looks like the snow's getting heavier.
It's a bit slippery, I'm afraid. Car tends to slide about even with the chains.
It's much worse than on the way over.
What are the prospects, Bewling?
Oh, she'll be fair enough as far as village, and a good piece below. That's when she do turn in and up, if you take my meaning, sir.
Yes.
As us a run into
This
blood.
hamper looks inviting. Anybody hungry?
No, not at the moment.
No, thank you.
All right. In that case, we'll open it at our first breakdown. If the others overhear me saying that, I dare say they won't let us have a breakdown, so that they can collar the lunch.
The others, Miss Wynne?
Yes, well, you know. They're the ones that leave nails and broken glass in the road. And they hide things when you're in a hurry. They've only got one arm and one leg each, so they take single gloves and stockings.
Oh, my God, Cloris, are you being whimsical?
You pretend not to be interested, Aubrey, but you, being a writer, I bet they take the top of your fountain pen often enough. And I bet they even get into Scotland Yard, eh, Mr. Owen?
Oh, do they not indeed? Listen, Mandrake.
Yes, you want the details, don't you? Poor chap embarking on all this without knowing the full facts goes far beyond the call of duty.
Policeman's lot, etc., etc.
Quite. Well, I'll start at the beginning.
Yes, do.
Jonathan Royal.
A millionaire.
Yes, he's a friend, sort of, and he invited me to his house for the weekend and asked me, if possible, to arrive on Thursday evening in advance of his other guests. I got there at about 5:30. Royal was waiting for me in the library.
Mr. Mandrake, sir?
Come in, Aubrey. Come in.
Jonathan!
Oh, what an incredible night. Harpies and warlocks abroad, most stimulating.
There's a gale blowing down from the north.
And it's tossed your hair into elf locks. Or did you do that yourself?
I had the driving window down.
You look like a character out of one of your own plays.
Oh, God.
You always say that when somebody talks about your writing. Does it imply modesty or desperate aesthetic pangs?
Oh, I don't know about
No
that.
matter, no matter. I cannot allow your muse to claim you this evening, because for tonight, yes, and for tomorrow and the next day, I shall be the creator, and you the audience.
What are you plotting?
Oh, yes. Plotting, that's the word. My dear, I am up to the ears in conspiracy. Draw up a chair to the fire and I'll tell you all about it.
Very well.
Would you say, I wonder, that I have a sense of the dramatic?
Depends what you mean by
I
dramatic.
maintain that I have. In the ordinary, unclassy sense. But you see in me, my dear Aubrey, the unsatisfied and inarticulate artist. Temperament and no art, that's me. Or so I thought until I got my idea.
Your idea?
It suddenly came to me. I'm a ninny with ink and paper and brush and canvas and all the rest of it, but there's one medium I've never tried.
And what could that wonderful medium be?
Flesh and blood.
What?
Flesh and blood.
Don't tell me you're going in for social welfare.
Wait a bit. It came to me that human beings could, with a little judicious arrangement, be as carefully composed as the figures in a picture. One had only to confine them within the boundaries of a suitable canvas, and they would take on some sort of form. It seemed to me that, given the limitations of an imposed stage, some of my acquaintances would at once begin to act out an exciting drama.
And?
I decided that all I had to do was select the right ingredients, set my palette with human colours, and the picture would paint itself. I would summon my characters to the theatre of my own house, and the drama would unfold.
I wish I knew what you were up to.
Oh, my dear fellow, I'm telling you. I have invited for this weekend 7 suitably selected characters. 7 characters with a sort of emotional, intellectual tension, an antagonism running like a connecting thread between them. Local people from my own corner of Dorset. And since I must have an audience, I've invited an 8th guest. Yourself.
If you expect me to break into a paean of enraptured gratitude, Jonathan, I really don't...
Not just yet, perhaps. Let me first make you happily familiar with a dramatis personae. And to that end, I propose we ring for a sherry. You look a little anxious.
Then my looks do scant justice to my feelings. I'm terrified.
Oh, you may have good cause. You shall judge of that when I've finished. The first characters to make their unconscious entrances on our stage are a mother and 2 sons. Mrs. Sandra Compline, William and Nicholas Compline. The lady is a widow and lives at Penfelton, a charming house just outside Cloudyfold village.
Ah.
The Complines are an old Dorset family and have been neighbours of ours for many generations. Her husband was my contemporary.
How did he die?
Used to hunt. Came a cropper, fell off his horse and broke his neck.
Oh.
Compline was a rackety, handsome fellow, more popular with the women than the men. But he had his own set in London, and a very fast set it was. Don't know where he met Sandra, but I'm afraid it was an ill-omened encounter for her. Poor thing. I suppose he fell in love with her looks. She was a very pretty creature then.
Go on.
When they'd been married about 8 years and had had these 2 sons, Sandra wearied of the kind of treatment she'd had to put up with from her husband and went to stay abroad. And I suppose with the idea of winning him back, she had something done to her face.
What sort of something?
Plastic surgery.
My God.
And 20 years ago, they weren't so good at it as they are nowadays. Anyway, the chap she consulted bolstered her face up with wax. And the wax slipped. Disastrous. This left her looking quite lopsided, with a sort of comical look.
Awful.
For a long time, she wouldn't go out or receive anyone, even attempted suicide.
Poor woman.
Yes. Caper, we'll take sherry now, please.
Very good, sir.
And Caper,
Sir?
Mr. Nicholas Compline is definitely coming tomorrow. He may have the blue room. Tell Mrs. Poulting, will you?
Yes, sir. Excuse me, sir. That makes 8 guests for the weekend?
Yes. Mrs. Compline, Mr. Nicholas and Mr. William Compline, Dr. Francis Hart, Madame Lissa, Miss Wynne, Lady Hersey Amblington, and, of course, Mr. Mandrake. 8. Mr. Mandrake tonight and the rest for dinner tomorrow. We'll have the Heidsieck 28 and the Courvoisier.
Very good, sir.
You do take sherry, Aubrey, don't you?
Please.
Yeah, do 2 sherries, Caper.
Yes.
I'm particularly anxious about the dinner tomorrow, Caper. There must be a feeling of festivity, of anticipation. Large fires in the bedroom. I've ordered flowers, something quite extra. I've told Mrs. Pouting, but your department, ginger up the new footman and the maids. You know what I mean?
Certainly, sir. I'm sure everything will be quite satisfactory.
Good, good.
The sherry, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Caper.
Thank you.
That'll be all for now.
Thank you, sir.
Your very good health.
And yours.
Well, let's go on.
Yes.
Sandra was left, as I said, with 2 small sons, William and Nicholas.
Right.
And gradually she seemed to take heart. Life at Penfelton returned to normal. William, the elder boy, was a quiet sort of chap. Plain. Oh, a humdrum fellow. He was described once quite aptly, I thought, as an unsuccessful drawing of a fine subject. He's a bit of an enigma. Devoted to his mother, watches over her like an old nanny. As a boy of 7, he was found by his nurse in a hysterical frenzy when his mother returned home after her operation. Remarkable in such a really rather commonplace boy. Oh, he's just odd. Nothing wrong, of course, really, but he's done very well so far in this war. But I sometimes wonder...
You don't like him, do you?
Oh, rubbish. He's merely rather difficult to describe, that's all. But Nicholas... Oh, Nicholas is his father all over again. Damn good-looking young blade. Charm, gaiety, dash, all the rest of it. Complete egoist. Bit of a showman, born with an eye for a lovely lady. He's, 29 now, and William's 32.
All right.
William's home on leave at the moment, needless to say, rushed straight home to mother. Nicholas uses Penfelton like a hotel, and his mother is the proprietress. Consequently, he's her favourite. She spoilt him from the day he was born. If she could cut William out of the entail, I promise you she'd do it. But she can do nothing. So William comes in for the whole packet, and Nick must fend for himself.
Do they get on well, the brothers?
Oh, they haven't met for some time. William's regiment's been at the front. Nick, having been declared delicate by his mother, has been wangled some departmental job in Great Chipping. Wears a uniform. Looks damned smart in it. But no, they don't get on well. Remember the necessary element of antagonism, Aubrey. William is engaged to Nick's ex-fiancée.
Oh, well done, William.
Which brings me to the next of my characters, the ingenue, in fact. Miss Cloris Wynne, one of the white-haired kind.
Platinum blonde.
Oh, the colour of light Chablis, and done up in plaster like sausages. She will arrive with William and his mamma, who detests her.
And Nicholas scorned her.
No, it isn't quite like that. Being in the habit of having his cake and eating it, he did not allow his engagement to cramp his style as an accomplished philanderer. In fact, he continued to philander with the 5th of our characters, Madame Lissa.
Good God.
Precisely. More in sorrow than in anger, it seems, Miss Cloris broke off the engagement, and after an interval so short one suspects she acted on the ricochet, she accepted William, who had previously courted her and been cut out by his brother. Now, my private opinion, what's more, is that when William returns to the front, Nicholas is quite capable of recapturing the young lady, and I think she and William both know it. Relations, therefore, are strained.
Yes.
And I need not tell you that Mrs. Compline, William, and his betrothed do not know that I have invited Nicholas, nor does he know that I have invited them. He does know, however, that I have invited Madame Lissa, which is why he has accepted.
Yes, tell me about her.
Oh, ambiguous, alluring, markedly a dasher, dark auburn hair, magnolia complexion, and eyes. Oh, Austrian originally and naturalized. A beauty specialist. She was among the earliest of our refugees. She has established a salon at Great Chipping, which did not please my distant cousin, Lady Hersey Amblington, who is also something of a beauty specialist.
And who, I take it, will also be arriving tomorrow evening.
Of course.
And the two are, of course, in competition?
Oh, yes, indeed. Not that Hersey has fewer customers now. They are simply not quite so smart. She refers to Madame Lissa as the pirate.
Really?
You haven't met Hersey?
No.
A distant cousin of mine, of whom I'm rather fond. A courageous and capable creature with her own somewhat direct methods of warfare. She is an old friend of the Complines, and not at all delighted by Nicholas's attention to her rival. So she is linked up in an extremely satisfactory manner to both sides.
And number 7?
Dr. Hart, the heavy of our play. Of Viennese extraction, though now also a naturalized Briton. He has been observed leaving Madame Lissa's flat at the most compromising hour, his hat drawn over his face.
I see.
He has also been observed to scowl most formidably at the mention of Nicholas Compline.
And he's a doctor?
A beauty specialist par excellence. The male of the species. Haven't you guessed Aubrey Dr. Hart's exact profession?
No.
He is a plastic surgeon.
I've always gauged Royal to be eccentric, but that was a lunatic thing to do.
And so I told him. I said, you've invited stark murder into your house.
Prophetic.
Yes, as things turned out.
What I don't understand is why did they all stay? They were free to leave the stage.
Jonathan's a wonderful host. I suppose we decided to make the best of it. And then, of course, the snow...
I still can't see what he was trying to achieve.
He hoped the weekend would go some distance towards burying a little armory of hatchets.
Low gear, now, sir. This be deep bottom.
I know it is.
That's better. 'Twill be slushed out along, I reckon.
If we stick...
If we stick, Cloris, they can damn well produce a farm animal to lug us out the far side.
Yes, but...
It's doggedness does it, miss. For a tidy 10 year and more, my old brother and me been telling master as how he did ought to put a digging old bridge across that there bottom, sir.
Yes.
It's all right, my dear. Just a little skid.
Now, pull over to your right, sir, by this here Puddlesome corner, or I shall sink to our axles.
I'm doing my best. The wheels won't grip.
You're doing fine, sir. Now, do you keep to the right and rush her up?
I'm in a blasted pothole or something.
Keep her going, sir, keep her going.
Damn you, come up. Oh,
Oh, we've stopped.
oh.
Let me out, sir, let me out. You can leave it to me, and don't stop engine for Glock's sake. Shan't be a minute. Don't you stir, I'll see.
What's he doing, Elaine?
I can only see his stern. He seems to be stuffing something under the back wheel.
Thank heaven he came with us.
I've never responded in the smallest degree to rustic charm, and James Bewling seems to me an extremely unconvincing piece of the genre.
Don't be beastly about him. He's very kind.
What does he mean by those ridiculous gestures?
I think he wants us to go on.
Ah,
Oh, we're moving. He's done it.
well, he can get in again.
Here he comes. Get in, James.
You all right, James?
Right as a trivet. I put a little bit of old sacket under the wheel.
I think we'll have lunch. I said we would after the first breakdown. The others can do without.
Right, since we seem to be safely on the move again, continue your story, Manfred.
Yes, of course. Well, on the Friday morning, Jonathan telephoned the Complines and invited them and Cloris to 4 o'clock tea.
So you're a playwright, Mr. Mandrake?
A poetic dramatist would be more accurate, William. A surrealist, even. Author of Saxophone in Tarleton, in which I was fortunate to invest a modest sum of money.
Which has reaped you but modest returns.
Indeed. Aubrey writes of sin and the occult, and most successfully, too.
I saw one of your plays, Mr. Mandrake.
Oh, God.
I'm surprised you got it past the Lord Chamberlain.
Well, the Lord Chamberlain doesn't know whether it's my dirty mind or his, so he says nothing. What do you do, Mr. Compline? I mean, what did you do before the war?
William has Penfelton to look after in peacetime.
Ah,
I paint pictures
I see.
with very thick oil paint.
My younger son, Nicholas, is a soldier too. He did not, unfortunately, pass his medical for active service. It was a very bitter blow to him. You are not in khaki, Mr. Mandrake?
Aubrey is disabled, Sandra.
I see. My son, Nicholas, longs to be with his regiment in France, but...
Captain Nicholas Compline.
What?
Yes. Didn't you know, William? Nick's to be one of our party.
Jonathan, how kind of you to invite me.
It's good of you to come.
Mother? It's lovely to see you. You're looking absolutely radiant. I had no idea you were going to be here.
Hello, dear.
A pleasant surprise for you, Nicholas. And here are 2 more.
William? Cloris?
Hello there.
Hello. And how are you, William?
I'm well. Thank you.
Quite a family party.
How is life at Great Chipping?
Quite unbearable.
Are you still conducting the war?
Tea, Nicholas?
Please.
Oh, you must look after yourself, Nicholas. You know you've never been strong.
Yes, always delicate, wasn't he, Mother? That's why he had tutors and I was sent away to school.
Is your pool fit for bathing, Jonathan?
Yes, why? It's not exactly bathing weather.
Oh, I was thinking of a dip before breakfast tomorrow. Care to come for a nice bracing plunge with me, Cloris?
No, thank you, Nick.
It would have been awkward for you if Cloris had said yes.
Not at all.
I'll bet £10 that nothing on earth would have got you into that water before or after breakfast.
Would you? I'll take you. You've lost.
Nonsense, William. I won't have it. Jonathan, please forbid these stupid boys to go on with this nonsense.
Me, my dear Sandra, I wouldn't dream of saying a word. Nicholas, you must help yourself to milk and sugar.
Jonathan, tell me, who are to be your other guests?
Let me think. Lady Hersey Amblington, whom you know. Madame Lissa, whom you also know. I believe Nicholas knows her well.
Yes, we have met.
And a business colleague of hers, a Dr. Hart. I'm told he's quite charming. You'll meet them all later at cocktails. Dr. Hart hails originally from Vienna, I believe, and at times can be seen wearing a rather extravagant cloak.
Oh, I love it.
Well, Mr. Mandrake, and have you and Jonathan planned this party together?
No, it's entirely Jonathan's.
Then he's played a trick on all of us. Well, do you know, if I painted his picture, I should make him egg-shaped with quite a merry smile and a scorpion round his head.
Oh, dear.
And for eyes, the sort of windows you can't see through, clouded glass. His eyes are quite black, impenetrable.
It's his thick glasses.
No, is that it? I expect he's told you about Nicholas and Cloris and me.
Yes.
And about Nicholas and Madame Lissa.
That too.
Well, if Jonathan, or Nicholas for that matter, imagine I'm going to lose my temper, they're wrong.
I'm sure if Jonathan has any ulterior motive, it's to effect a reconciliation.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be at all amusing. But I shan't do anything to Nicholas. Let him cool his ardour tomorrow in the swimming pool. After all, I've won. I've got Cloris, haven't I?
Poor William. Another sandwich, Aubrey? Or must you keep both hands on that steering wheel?
No, I think I can manage, thank you. It's not too bad just here where it's straight.
Well, now this year be Pengiddling. We're halfway there, but what's that over yet? A nasty stretch she'll be round them there hills.
Yes, good.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the party got off to
Oh,
a promising start.
If William's judgment was right, yes. And Royal's only aim was to make mischief.
Yes, of course it was.
Well, things were soon to get worse. When Madame Lissa arrived, Nicholas clearly decided to brazen it out and took up a proprietary position behind her.
And Dr. Hart.
Glared at them both.
He's quite a hateful man, with eyes like a lizard. I disliked him intensely at first sight.
Anyway, on his arrival, he had presented Jonathan with a Tyrolean cloak, the twin of the one he was wearing. For 2 pins, I think he'd have taken it back.
And Lady Hersey.
Took one look at Madame Lissa and turned scarlet.
Oh, you noticed?
I'm not quite blind, Aubrey, nor yet half as silly as you think. And they sniped at each other all through dinner.
The surprising thing, though, well, surprising at the time, was Dr. Hart's reaction to Mrs. Compline.
And hers to him.
How do you mean?
He couldn't take his eyes off her.
And she seemed to shrink inside herself and spoke only when she was spoken to.
And then only in monosyllables. Later, of course, one understood why.
Well, why?
Well, it transpired that Hart, then Dr. Franz Hartz of Vienna, had been the surgeon who had performed the operation on her face. She had been known to him as Mrs. Nicholas, but there's no doubt he recognized her, and though it was 25 years on, she knew him.
What happened after dinner?
Well, over coffee, Jonathan became unusually loquacious, even for him, and launched into some dissertation about the nature of the individual.
You see, the reality of individuals is not absolute. No one person is the same individual to more than one other person.
That's very true.
I don't quite understand.
Well, Madame Lissa, allow me to elaborate.
Must you, Jonathan?
Now, Hersey, this is my party. You must all humour me. Now, what I'm saying, Madame Lissa, is that each individual has as many exterior realities as the number of encounters he makes.
Excuse me.
Yes, Dr. Hart.
That is a pet theory of my own, in fact, that the actual he is known to nobody.
Does the actual he even exist?
I still don't see what you mean.
Nor do I, William. One knows perfectly well how people will react to certain events.
But it is my contention that is exactly what we don't know.
We know that in a crisis one man will keep his head, whereas another will go to pieces.
Exactly. Take the war. There are some men in my company who
Oh, no,
completely go...
William, not the war.
I agree, Sandra. Let us not draw our examples from the war. Let us imagine some unforeseen, hitherto unexperienced circumstances.
For example?
For example, that my new footman suddenly developed homicidal mania and was possessed of a lethal weapon.
Or that this was a Borgia party, and the champagne at dinner was poisoned, and we all had 10 minutes to live.
Oh, Nicky, what an outrageous idea.
Will you be the first to go, Nicky, the amount you drank?
William. And Francis would run him a close second. Won't you, Francis? One might almost imagine you were trying to drown some secret sorrow.
You find that thought amusing, Compline?
Dr. Hart, there is little that Madame Lissa says that I don't find completely charming. It is always a great pleasure to me to be in her company.
Oh, why, Nicholas?
May I return to my thesis?
Oh, Jonathan.
How, in some disastrous circumstances, does each of you believe I would behave? Sandra?
I think you would talk, Jonathan.
Touché. And you, Madame Lisa?
Oh, forgive me, Mr. Royal. I do not know you all that well, but I think you would lose your temper.
Nick?
I think you might be rather flattened out.
William?
Oh, I don't know. You might go mad, I suppose.
I believe you'd enjoy yourself.
I agree, Lady Hersey. I think you would be enormously interested in the behavior of your guests.
You see, so many Jonathan Royal.
And then afterwards we played a word game. Charter.
It's a sort of crossword game. Letters are drawn one by one from a pack of cards and points awarded for the longest words.
I marked Aubrey's card. He had extract. 7 points.
Luck. Anyway, I marked Williams. He hadn't completed a word at all. Just done a little drawing of a strutting rooster, which bore a strong resemblance to Nicholas. He was marking Hart's card.
They'd both been drinking heavily at dinner.
And suddenly he said, "You've given me 2 forms," and turned quite pale. "A stupid mistake," said Hart. "I must have torn them off the block at the same time." Then the moment passed.
Why should Nicholas turn pale?
The same thought occurred to me, so I went back down to the library after midnight to see if I could find the second form.
Aubrey, you didn't.
Well, there's no shame in looking at a discarded paper from a round game, Cloris.
Did you find it?
Yes.
Was anything written on it?
Yes. 5 words. "You are warned. Keep off."
I see.
I remember thinking, I'll bet Nicholas locks his bedroom door tonight.
And the following morning?
Was the morning of the bet.
It wasn't forgotten?
Oh, hardly. William brought up the topic at breakfast, and Nicholas seemed keen to go through with it. So we all agreed to meet at the pool, except for Madame Lissa, who was still in bed. It was freezing cold, with a layer of crisp snow on the lawns. Nicholas grabbed one of the 2 cloaks, Jonathan's or Hart's, from the cloakroom, and threw me the other. Then he dashed off to the pavilion to change. I decided not to wait for the others, but made my own way down to the pool. I don't much like people having to check their steps to my limp. I reached the poolside, and then... As I sank, I remember thinking, this is really bad. And water rushed into my nose and ears. My boots seemed to weigh a ton, and my arms were caught in the wretched cloak. My lungs were bursting, and my body was dying of cold. Then I thought, you'll die if you don't swim. So I kicked out and struggled to the surface.
Are you all right? Catch hold of this!
I found myself choking into the face of a monstrous bird.
That's right. Now kick out! This way!
The rail, Mandrake! There's a rail here! Get hold of it! Come on!
You're all right now. Up you come.
Come on, old chap. How the devil did it happen?
But that is my cloak.
The edge is terribly slippery. I nearly fell in myself.
I didn't fall. I was pushed.
My dear fellow, we must get you into the house at once.
Yes, we should get him inside quickly. A hot bath. Can you walk, Mr. Mandrake?
Yes.
Your arm across my shoulders. Come on. Perhaps, Mr. Compline, you will be good enough to retrieve my cape.
Sorry, Hart. I can't swim, as you well know.
We'll fish it out somehow. Take Mr. Mandrake in, please, and get him into bed.
I tell you, I was pushed, Jonathan.
Lie still and take another sip of this, Aubrey, please.
Somebody came up behind me and thrust me forward.
But, my dear
They
fellow...
did. I can still feel the impact of their hands. I was deliberately thrown into that water.
Nicholas saw nobody when he came out of the pavilion.
No, exactly. By that time, whoever it was had hidden himself.
But we should have seen him.
Hart and William Compline were already there when you arrived.
Yes, and Miss Wynne. But
did they walk down to the pool together?
I think not. Hart came through the front door, past the pavilion, and William by the west door. I don't know about Miss Wynne.
The question is, which one of them arrived first?
Try and go to sleep.
I don't in the least want to go to sleep, Jonathan, and don't, I implore you, look as though I was mentally unhinged.
Well, you have had a shock.
Jonathan, somebody tried to drown me in your loathsome pond, and I confess I should like to know who it was.
A thoughtless piece of foolery, perhaps.
Does anyone but a moron play that kind of prank on a cripple? Somebody must have seen it.
Come in. Nicholas.
Look here, I hope you don't mind my butting in.
No, not at all. I gather it was you who saved my life by throwing me that inflated India rubber duck.
I'm afraid it looked rather ridiculous, but it was all I could think of.
Oh, don't worry. Being a playwright, it's not the first time I've been given the bird. However, it's certainly the first time I have welcomed it with both arms.
Jonathan, you realize the significance of this business?
The significance?
It was done deliberately.
That's what I've been trying to tell him.
It was an attempt to drown me.
You? By whom?
Hart. You know how he feels towards me.
But...
All right. Well, let me tell you. As I went down to the pool, I glanced up at the front of the house, and I saw him watching me through the first floor window, the one above the front door.
But, my dear Nick...
He was watching me. He saw me go down wearing that cape. He didn't see Mandrake go down wearing the other cape because he left by the west door. It was Hart shoved you overboard, Mandrake, and he thought he was doing me in. Hart!
You are better now, Mr. Mandrake?
Oh, excuse me, Aubrey.
Yes, thank you, Nick.
It will be well for you to remain in bed today, perhaps. You've had a little shock. As we brought you back to the house, you declared repeatedly that you had been pushed into the pool deliberately.
I'm quite convinced of it.
Then it would perhaps be as well if I set your mind at rest on that matter. No attempt was made wittingly upon you, Mr. Mandrake. It was a case of mistaken identity.
Oh, good God.
The person who made this attack believed that he was making it upon me.
You? My dear Hart, what put that strange notion into your head?
It is to me quite evident that Nicholas Compline mistook you for myself.
Forgive me, Dr. Hart. That's a little hard to swallow. I am lame, I wear a heavy boot, I use a stick. You can't mistake a man with a club foot.
In the snow?
Apart from which, Compline waved to me from the pavilion as I reached the poolside. There's no doubt he recognized me. And it was he who threw me your cape to wear, so it's impossible he should have thought you were inside it.
There is an explanation that seems to have occurred to nobody.
Oh?
I have an identical cloak. Is it not at least possible that someone might have thought it amusing to watch me flounder in my own pool?
Who?
Well, it might be argued almost every member of my house party.
And what effect did this involuntary dip of yours have on the rest of the house party?
I can answer that. It cast a blight over everything. Not that it had been going with a swing before. Mrs. Compline took to her bed with a bad cold. Lady Hersey and Jonathan seemed to be having a row in the library. Dr. Hart and Madame Lissa were doing the same in the boudoir. And Nicholas was sulking in the smoking room.
William?
He and I had a snorter of a row over his harping on about the bet with Nicholas. He said some pretty offensive things about Nicholas and me, so I broke off the engagement.
I see.
Poor William. He was very upset. His mother had accused him of pushing Aubrey into the pool, thinking it was Nicholas.
Mistaken identity yet again.
Tell me, Miss Wynne, who was at the poolside when Mandrake was pulled out?
It would be quicker to tell you who wasn't. Mrs. Compline, Lady Hersey, and Madame Lissa.
You say there was snow on the lawn. I suppose neither of you particularly noticed the footprints.
Oh, I noticed Aubrey's.
One could hardly miss them.
Don't be so defensive. Mr. Allain, there were several sets of footprints leading from the house, and all large. I know, because I stepped in them. It was snowing quite heavily by then, and I found it easier going.
You left no footmarks of your own?
I don't think so.
Strange.
Why do you say that?
Well, I'm damned if I know how I came to notice them, but I did, as they brought me back up those unspeakable steps.
Noticed what?
A row of footprints running from the house as far as the top of the terrace and turning back again. Small ones. I rather assumed they were Cloris's, since none of the other ladies was present.
Well, they weren't.
Oh, hello.
Why the hell is she sliding about like this? How much further, James?
More than 5 miles.
Good. If the snow's frozen hard all the way, I believe we'll do it.
What is it, James?
'Twill be drifting up along, I reckon.
Drifting?
Damn, she's doing it again. I'm going to have a look at those chains.
No, don't Easter, sir. I'll see.
Oh,
No sign of it letting up.
The rector said it wouldn't.
I suppose we will get through.
Now, Cloris, keep your pecker up.
Yes.
What happened next? Everyone was quarrelling or sulking, then what?
Well, Nicholas suddenly announced in a rather high voice that he must get back to his HQ at Great Chipping. He said he'd received an urgent summons by telephone. But that wasn't very plausible, because by that time the lines were down.
What were his motives, do you think, for wanting to leave?
Well, he was frightened.
Of Hart?
Yes. He was convinced he was trying to kill him. He asked Jonathan for the use of the car, and when it was pointed out that he'd never get through to Great Shipping by road because of the deep drifts, he set off on foot.
It's more than 10 miles. He could never make it.
So Jonathan and William and James Bewling set out after him and found him spread-eagled and half buried in a drift. They brought him back, covered in snow, quite furious and muttering that he'd have been safer crossing Cloudyfold on foot in the dark than spending another night at Highfold.
So he really did think that Hart was trying to kill him?
Yes. I'm afraid he's a complete coward. Mind you, later that evening it began to look as if he was right, because as we were dressing for dinner...
It was Nicholas. By the time I got to his bedroom, they were all gathered in the door.
Nicky! This is frightful!
Oh, my poor boy! He said someone was after him, and by gum, he was right.
Shut up, William!
What happened? It was a booby trap, Mandrake. The bust of Buddha from that niche in the passage. It's solid brass.
It was balanced on the top of the door.
My God.
I went to push open the door. It wasn't quite shut, and as I shoved, it opened quickly, and I sort of jumped back, and the thing thudded down. It caught my arm.
Oh, poor darling. His arm's broken. Let me look at it.
I don't think so, Mother. It was a glancing blow, but it's damn sore.
It could have killed you.
Yes. Ow, Mother, that hurts.
Oh, he can't move it.
Perhaps you'd like me to...
No, thank you, Hart. Keep off. You've done enough already.
This has become too much. Too much, I tell you!
I don't think it's broken, Nick.
It's bloody sore.
We could do with a first aid kit.
I'll get one. Mrs. Pouting is fully equipped.
It's Hart, Bill. He's probably mad. He's got this bee in his bonnet about me and Madame Lissa.
There's nothing in it, of course, but Francis is a desperately jealous man.
No, it's not that, is it? Nicky, it's got nothing to do with her. You found out about him, haven't you?
Sandra.
Nick, my dear, you know. You guessed.
Sandra, don't.
Hersey knows what I'm talking about. Do you see what's happened, Hersey? Nick has found out and threatened to expose him. So Hart is trying to kill him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I.
What is all this?
Oh, this woman is evidently insane. What mystery is she making?
Dr. Hart is the surgeon who operated on my face. Dr. Franz Hartz of Vienna. I recognized him instantly.
I know nothing. Nothing.
The bloody swine. My God, the bloody swine!
I both... William, where are you going? Come back.
Save your breath, Jonathan. You won't stop him now. Hart had better look out.
But my...
What are we to do?
Shall we dine?
Oh, pesky chain on off-hind wheels carried away, sir. That's the way she's been...
Get in, it's freezing.
Well, I'm telling you, that's
Well,
why
I
she's
suppose
been
there's nothing
skidding.
for it but to struggle on without it.
I don't know.
Mr. Allain,
Yes?
I've just remembered something. Oh, I don't know if it's important.
I'm listening.
After Jonathan, William and James had gone off to rescue Nick from the snowdrift, Mrs. Compline suddenly announced she wanted to go outside and see if they were coming. Lady Hersey and I tried to talk her out of it, but she insisted, saying she hadn't been out of the house all day.
So?
Well, when I went up to get her overcoat out of the wardrobe for her, it was wet.
Was it?
It may not be significant.
No, I'm glad you told me, Miss Wynne. Thank you.
But when are we going to get to the murder? We're almost there, Mr. Alleyne. We're almost there. Madame Lissa, Dr. Hart, and Mrs. Compline begged to be excused from dinner, which left the rest of us free to speak our minds.
What's the law about attempted murder?
Bill.
No, I'm sorry, Hersey. A man who could do that to Mother's face could do anything.
You're barking up the wrong tree. It's because of Elisa Lissa.
Oh, rot, Nicky.
I was in her room just prior to that business with the Buddha. The fellow's off his head with jealousy.
God, I'll expose him. I'm damn well going to lug
Oh,
him out.
no, you're not. This is my house, and I will not have it.
Jonathan, you must declare yourself. Do you or do you not think Dr. Hart is out for Nick's blood?
I am regretfully forced to that conclusion, yes. Who else are we to suspect?
It must be Hart. He has a motive. Maybe two.
Yes, and at the time of the Buddha business, the rest of us had alibis.
I was with Elisa.
And I was with you, Jonathan, in the smoking room, doing a sketch of the trophies.
That's right, you were.
I was with Sandra in her room, trying to calm her down. It has to be Hart.
Oh, what the hell does it matter? Our charming plastic surgeon is probably thinking up a new death trap on the third time lucky principle now. What are we going to do about him?
We can't give him in charge. The snow...
Then how do we protect Nicholas?
What am I to do? I can't lock up Dr. Hart.
Well, I think the least you could do is have it out with him, see what sort of defence he can make.
Yes,
I think that's an excellent idea.
Oh, very well, but Mandrake must come with me. Dr. Hart, it won't do, you know. This last affair with the Buddha could have inflicted a fatal injury to Nicholas Compline.
I made no attack on Nicholas Compline. That I am at enmity with him, I admit, but no attack. I should leave this house immediately, but since this isn't possible, I propose to remain here in this boudoir or in my room until I am able to leave.
Dr. Hart, what were you doing during the 10 to 15 minutes before Nicholas cried out?
I was in this room. I remained here until it was time to dress. Then I went upstairs to my room, bathed, and was dressing when I heard him scream. I put on my dinner jacket and went out into the passage, where I found all of you grouped about the doorway to his room.
Do you know where Nicholas was when the trap was being set for him?
No.
He tells us he was with Madame Lissa, in her room.
I did not know where he was.
Have you seen this paper before?
What is it?
It is the piece of paper you passed to Nicholas while we were playing Charter. It reads, "You are warned, keep off."
I have never seen it before, never.
Look at it. Take it.
I will not touch it. This is a trap. My fingerprints...
I merely wish you to compare the handwriting to that on your acceptance to my invitation for the weekend.
No.
Then allow me to point out that you use a script which retains its continental flavour. The leg of the German K is usually prolonged. Here we have a K in kind invitation. We have the same K in keep in the charter note.
I know nothing about it.
No, that will not do.
Oh, God, I can endure this no longer. I must insist that you leave me alone.
Very well. And I must insist that you remain in this room or your bedroom. And what is more...
I have already agreed to do so.
What is more, I am armed, Dr. Hart.
Good God, Jonathan.
And I shall ensure that Nicholas is also armed. I wish you good night. Aubrey?
I'll stay a while longer, Jonathan, if Dr. Hart permits.
As you wish. No good will come of it.
Ach, Mandrake. I'm near breaking point. I'm torn by the most terrible of all emotions, and I cannot fight against it. Do you two believe I am the author of these attacks on Compline?
Yes, I'm afraid I do. Look, I stayed because I think you should know you must beware of William. He's after your blood.
Because of what I did to his mother, he's found out.
Yes. William is very protective towards his mother. There's no knowing what he might do.
Thank you for the warning, Mandrake. Now, I entreat you to go.
Hart, what is it that you can't fight against? Jealousy?
If only I could be certain.
Of what?
That it is all lies, that he is her lover. When she denies it, I cannot help half believing her. I wish so much to believe. And then I see the look of boredom in her eyes, a look of weariness, contempt, and with that comes the memory of the glances I surprised between them, and I'm courting the toils of hell.
If you feel so strongly, why did you come here?
To know the worst. Watch us and find out, she said. It is nothing. And then, when I saw him with all the airs of complacent ownership, laughing at me...
Look, Hart, it's none of my business, but if you're so certain, why not make a clean break? Is she worth it? Let her go.
Let her go? She is my wife, Mandrake. What? We live separate lives for professional reasons, but Elise is my wife. Gott im Himmel, must I be tortured by that intolerable noise!
Oh, the Complines are listening to the wireless next door in the smoking room, that's all.
Compline! Turn it off! I insist that you turn it off!
Did you say something, Hart?
Turn off that noise!
You go to hell. If my brother and I choose to listen to the wireless, we'll bloody well listen to it.
Intolerable. This is all quite intolerable.
Listen, Hart. Stay here, help yourself to a whiskey, and keep well clear of the Complines, all right?
You felt sorry for him?
Yes, I did. Though I thought him guilty as hell. Everyone did. When I joined the others in the library, we were trying to decide what on earth we could do. Hart was clearly crazed with jealousy and out to revenge himself on Nicholas, whatever the cost. Damnation! Oh, I'm sorry, we've hit a snowdrift.
I told you we could have done that.
Everybody all right?
Yes, I reckon so.
Oh, the engine won't start.
Yeah. You got a cranking handle, sir?
In the boot.
Yeah, right, then. You leave that to me. Don't you worry about the thing now.
It's getting worse, isn't it? And it'll be dark before very long.
Any more tea in the flask?
It's all gone, I'm afraid. Oh, dear.
Oh, darling Cloris, I implore you not to cry.
Oh, it must be the shock or something.
Oh, yes.
I've been so miserable about William and Nicky. I've so wanted to be rid of them both,
there.
and now I...
Take my hanky.
Thanks. I'm sorry, Mr. Allais.
Oh, don't worry about me.
Oh, please don't be nice to me. I feel like a sweep. It was foul of me to get engaged to William on the rebound, because that's what it was. I knew all the time what I was up to.
Oh, my sweet.
That's no use, sir. Can't get out so much as a tiny gurgle out of her.
I'm sure you did your best, James. The question is, what do we do now?
Well, sir, I've been thinking. And that's not more than a mile or so now to Pennyquick Cottage cross country. And I reckon I could make it on foot and get help from old Matthew Whaley and his sons.
Sounds like a good plan to me. There's no chance of all of us making it on foot, is there?
Oh, no chance at all, I shouldn't wonder, sir.
Good luck, James.
Thank you, miss. Look like I shall need it. Cheery bye.
Bye, James.
I feel quite deserted.
Hold my hand.
Yes.
The murder?
Yes. Well, we were all sitting in the library. Jonathan, Cloris, Hersey and myself, wondering what we should do about Hart. His motive for attacking Nicholas was all the stronger, now we knew Madame Lissa to be his wife. Then Nicholas joined us from the smoking room. He was looking glum. He'd utterly failed to cheer William up and had finally left him in the smoking room. Sounds ridiculous, but we decided we'd all like to listen to the news on the wireless as a sort of counter-irritant. Except we didn't want to bother William, and Jonathan only had the one wireless, and that was in the smoking room. Then the young footman came in with a tray of drinks, and we all had large ones.
Well, Jonathan said, would William like one? And Nick opened the door to the smoking room and asked him. It seems William declined, so then Nick asked if he'd mind switching on the wireless, because we all wanted to hear the news. Obviously, William didn't mind, because Nick glanced back over his shoulder in our direction and winked. Seconds later, the wireless came to life.
Yeah, it was hands, knees and bumps-a-daisy, or the last part of it. Then came the news.
Oh, it was very dull. Some well-known authority on Polish folk music was now known to be a prisoner of the Germans in Warsaw.
That's right. Well, after a few minutes or so, Hersey poured a drink for William and took it over to the smoking room.
I saw her open the door, look inside, and then stop. She turned her head towards us, and her lips moved, but no sound came out. She was as white as a sheet. I felt a sort of icy sensation close like a hand about my heart. Nick cried out, "My God, what's happened?" And Hersey went over to him and took his hands in hers. "He's killed William," she said. "Oh, Nick, he's killed William."
It was William that was murdered. I'd assumed all along it was... But never mind, go on.
Nick, Jonathan, and I went into the smoking room. William was sitting in a low chair beside the wireless. He was bent double. His face was between his knees and his hands were close to his shoes. It looked almost as if he was staring at a small object that lay between his feet. There was a cleft in the back of his head.
Oh, no.
There was no doubt that he was dead. I felt abominably sick. As I turned away, my foot struck against a flattish, spatulate object made of stone that was lying on the floor. Jonathan noticed it at the same time. "It's a merry," he said.
What?
A Maori bludgeon from New Zealand. It hung on the wall.
The murder weapon?
Yes, it was stained with blood. Hart must have come in...
Why Hart? He had nothing against William.
William had plenty against him.
Oh, Elaine, it was clearly another case of mistaken identity. The room was dimly lit. Hart believed Nicholas was still in the smoking room, saw a figure in uniform, and, well, did what he did.
I see. So what did you do?
Went up and tackled Hart. He was asleep in bed. He'd taken some Veronal and needed a lot of waking. He denied everything, of course. I confiscated the Veronal in case he got any queer ideas, and we locked him in his room. We should have done so before.
This Veronal
was what Sandra Compline took when she heard the news about William. That and a large quantity of aspirin, which nobody knew she had.
You gave her the Veronal?
Yes. Well, Lady Hersey did. Half the prescribed dosage. It seemed safe enough and sufficient to get Sandra off to sleep. But then Hersey left the rest of the bottle on the bedside table. Oh, God.
It wasn't your fault, Aubrey.
I should have known better. Well, so much had happened, and in so short a time.
Did Mrs. Compline leave a note?
Yes, but only Nick knows what it said. He read it and stuffed it in his pocket. Anyway, the maid found her this morning when she went up with her breakfast. Hart was persuaded to examine Sandra. He and Hersey tried artificial respiration, but to very little effect. It was then we decided we must reach a chemist and enlist some professional help. Yours.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm freezing.
Yes, me too.
Right then. It's no good perishing of cold in here. Time for some action.
What? I'm sorry?
What?
Got any shovels aboard?
One in the boot.
Then you and I'll take turns to use it. See if we can get this car out of the drift. Come on.
Right.
Question, Mandrake.
Yes?
Why do you suppose Mrs. Compline tried to take her own life?
I've thought about that. I can only assume she felt guilt about William's death.
Guilt? Why guilt?
Because she feared it was on her account that Hart killed him. She was convinced the enmity between her sons and Hart was because of that dreadful operation on her face.
Yet you say she cared very little for William.
That's what Jonathan said. That's how it looked to me. Look, shall I take over with the shovel again?
No need now, I think. Where's the starting handle?
I'll get it.
Is there anything I can do?
You could try praying. We're going to attempt to start the car.
Tell me, Miss Wynne, did you get on with Mrs. Compline?
I would have liked to be friends with her, but she hated me from the beginning.
Why?
First, because I was engaged to Nick, and secondly, and even more violently, I suppose, because I jilted him for William.
She doted on Nicholas.
Oh, yes. She thought him perfect. And she had a fantastic hatred for anyone who made him look shabby.
Here's the starting handle.
Leave that to me. You sit in and keep her going if she starts.
Right, I'll do my best.
Cross your fingers, Miss Wynne. Here goes. Nearly. Second time lucky.
Oh, bravo! Well done!
Come on, then. Time we were on our way.
Oh, come on.
This is the smoking room?
Yes. Nothing's been touched, except they thought it decent to cover William with a sheet.
Yes, I quite understand. And this is William Compline. I don't imagine he knew anything about it. Caught in a little blitzkrieg of his own, poor chap. That's the murder weapon?
It hung up on the wall there with the other weapons.
Now, if Hart took it down from its place on the wall, he'd have been in full view of William as he fiddled with the knobs on that radio.
Yes, I suppose he would.
Yet he saw no cause for alarm.
Hart might have taken it down earlier.
Perhaps. And that door leads to...
the green boudoir.
To which Hart was banished. Yes? And this one? Where does this lead to?
To the library.
Woodworm.
Pardon?
A small hole here in the door jamb. Looks like woodworm. Where's my pocket lens? Perhaps not.
I'm awfully sorry to have kept you waiting. I'm Jonathan Royal.
Roderick Allen.
How do you do? I do hope Aubrey has been looking after
Yes,
you.
indeed. Interesting room, Mr. Royal.
Oh, it's a terrible room now. It will never be the same again.
I shall need to take some photographs.
Yes, why not? It can't disturb him now. I was very fond of William. Oh, what a dreadful business, and all my fault. This ridiculous party. What is it, Aubrey?
I seem to have got something stuck in the sole of my boot. Won't come out. Yes, it will. It's a drawing pin.
A drawing pin? May I see?
Yes, here it is.
It's just a drawing pin, Mr. Alleyne. It can't possibly have any significance. William was sketching in here yesterday. Probably belonged to him. But surely it's obvious what happened. Hart crept in from the boudoir, took down the Mary, and struck William on the head with it, believing him to be Nicholas. In the light of Hart's earlier unsuccessful attempts at the pool, and with the Buddha, and the threat he made when we were playing Charter, I should have thought that crystal clear.
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. I should like to see that slip of paper from the Charter game, if you still have it.
Of course I still have it, Mr. Alleyne. It's evidence.
When it's convenient, then, please. An impressive array of trophies you have here.
Yes.
This fishing rod.
It belonged to my grandfather. He caught a 4.5-pounder with it just above Trott's Bridge in 1900. It's hung there above the mantel ever since.
Escaping the attention of your housemaids, it seems.
But, yes, dust, I see.
Yes, except for the line itself. No dust at all on that. Shouldn't there be a fly?
Yes. Yes, there should. A red and green Alexander.
The line's been cut through. Clean end, you see.
Forgive me, Chief Inspector, but I don't quite...
No. What about this?
What?
Interesting.
What is it, Elaine?
Here in the hearth. Fine thread of ash.
Isn't that what one would expect in a hearth?
Of course, Mr. Royal, of course. I'll just photograph it, if I may.
How is Mrs. Compline, Jonathan?
Oh, they think she's going to die.
Who's with her now?
Hart. A monstrous arrangement, I know, but what else could I do?
Is he alone?
Most certainly not. Lady Hersey Amblington, an experienced VAD, has never left Sandra's side. Oh, there is something else, Mr. Alleyne.
Yes?
This. It contains the note Sandra left for Nicholas. No one has read it but he. He placed it in this envelope in the presence of Lady Hersey and myself. I now hand it to you.
Very correct, sir.
Well, one is a JP, after all.
Now, perhaps I should read it now.
Oh, take care. Fingerprints.
Yes, of course. Thank you again for reminding me, Mr. Royal. I shall be careful.
May we know what's in it, Elaine?
I don't see why not. My darling, you must not let this make you very sad. I think that during these last hours I have been insane. I cannot write a confession. What I am going to do will make things clear enough. All my life, everything I have done has been for you. Even this last terrible thing is for you. My last thoughts and prayers are for you, my dearest Nicholas. And then she signed it with her full name, Sandra Mary Compline.
Confession? She's confessing to William's murder? Impossible. Quite impossible.
It doesn't make any
I
sense.
must talk to Dr. Hart immediately.
He cannot leave his patient.
Then I'll see him upstairs, if you'll kindly lead the way.
I leave you to it then, Mr. Allais.
Thank you. Is she deeply unconscious, Dr. Hart?
Profound coma. I have done everything possible by way of treatment, but...
Was the stuff from the chemist of any use?
Oh, she isn't any better.
I wish you to record the treatment. I am in a dangerous position. I need to protect myself.
At the moment, Dr. Hart, I'm more concerned with your patient. Is there the smallest hope of recovery?
In my opinion, none.
How long?
Not very long, I think.
I think I should tell Nicholas, if that's all right.
Yes, Lady Elsie.
Thank you.
Dr. Hart, I have some questions to put to you. Will you answer them?
Why not?
First, did you push Mr. Mandrake into the pool?
No, I did not.
Did you write and pass to Nicholas Compline the charter form bearing the words, "You are warned, keep off"?
I did not, nor did I remove the Buddha from the passage and place it as a booby trap above his door.
One final question, Dr. Hart. Did you kill William Compline?
No.
Everyone in this house believes that you did.
Yes.
You seem very calm about it.
You mean that I'm not afraid? No, not now. I am an Austrian refugee and a Jew who became a naturalized Briton. I have developed a good nose for justice. I have learned when and when not to be terrified. I am, as you might say, a kind of barometer of terror. At this moment, I am quite normal. I respect British justice. I do not believe that I shall be found guilty of a murder I did not commit.
It would help if you had an alibi.
Alas.
Tell me what happened last evening after you had shouted at Nicholas Compline about the din from the wireless and Aubrey Mandrake had left the room.
I took his advice and poured myself a stiff whiskey, trying to pull myself together. I was beginning to feel more recovered when the wireless noises started up again, not loudly this time, more furtive. It sounded like Compline was fiddling with the dial control because there were snatches of music and then static, bursts of German and then French. I found it equally intolerable. I was so much on edge. I rushed at the communicating door, intending to have it out with Compline once and for all. But the door was locked, and the key was on the other side.
Locked?
Yes. He must have locked it after our earlier exchange, so I cursed him at the top of my voice through the door, and, flying from the torment, went upstairs to my room.
But nobody saw you.
Oh, yes. As I crossed the hall to the foot of the stairs, I passed the new footman with his tray of glasses. He went into the library, and as I reached the halfway landing, he came out again and began locking up in the hall. He will tell you that I did not enter the smoking room.
Well, Dr. Hart, we shall see. You're Thomas the footman?
Yes, sir.
Come in, Thomas. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Certainly, sir.
I'd like to ask you about the events of last evening.
Yes, sir. If I can help, sir.
You took a tray of glasses to the library. Did you see anyone as you crossed the hall?
The foreign gentleman, sir. He came out of the green boudoir heading for the stairs. And as I came out of the library a few seconds later, sir, I saw him up on the landing on his way to his room.
How long did you stay in the hall?
I locked the front doors, made up the fire, tidied the tables.
Yes. How long might that have taken? Several minutes?
About that, yes.
And then you returned to the servants' quarters?
Not directly, sir. No, I heard this music on the wireless.
Oh, what sort of music?
Bumps-a-daisy, sir. And
yes?
I went through the movements, sir. Hands, knees, and bumps-a-daisy. You know.
Yes, I know.
in time to the music, sir. I don't know why, I'm sure it just came over me. Mind you, I didn't do it for very long, sir, because it was halfway through when I started, and then the news came on and I went below stairs.
Think carefully, Thomas. During the time you were dancing, did anybody at all, come into the hall?
No, sir. I assure you they didn't.
Would you swear that in a court of law?
I'd swear, sir.
Thank you, Thomas. That'll be all. No, sorry.
Yes, sir?
The maid who was looking after Mrs. Compline, would you tell her I'd like a word?
It's all gone so awfully quiet, Aubrey.
Yes.
Sinister, somehow. Like the quiet before a storm. What's he doing now?
Alain, I think he's on his own in the library. He's interviewed everyone in the house. Cloris.
Hmm?
May I kiss you?
Ah, the indoor sport idea, I see.
Oh, not sport, Cloris. I've fallen in love with you. Head over heels.
I'm really not at all clever. I put up a bluff. You'd despise me no end if you knew me better.
Are you in love with Nicholas Compline?
Nick? Oh, no. I fell for his line of stuff, that's all. I couldn't help myself. He's got it, as they say, something in his makeup. But no, I'm cured of Nicholas. Forever.
Oh, good. Cloris, I have a confession. I wasn't christened Aubrey Mandrake. My real name is Stanley Footling.
Oh, dear.
I've never told anyone else.
I shall take that as a compliment.
Not even the Footlings of Fifeshire, or even furniture polish. Just Footling.
Oh, who cares? I won't shrink from you because of your name, if that's what you're afraid of.
Oh, darling Cloris.
So that's where you both are. I should have known I'd find you together.
Hello, Jonathan.
Sad news, I'm afraid, and very upsetting. Sandra Compline has passed away.
Oh, dear.
Still, no point in getting maudlin. Alain wants to see us all in the library. Now.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, I must explain that I've arrived at a definite conclusion in this case.
You've arrested Hart?
No, Mr. Compline. Dr. Hart is quite innocent in this affair.
Innocent? But
May I proceed? Thank you. I have asked you here in order that we may go over the events immediately preceding the discovery of William Compline's body in the next room. I have not asked those members of the party who are upstairs to be present, Dr. and Mrs. Hart. They cannot help us. You've all heard of police reconstructions. Well, this very short experiment may be regarded as a reconstruction, and if I am at fault in the smallest detail, I ask you to put me right. Is that quite clear?
You want us to do everything we did last night?
If you have no objection.
Very well, very well.
Thank you. Now, the time is a minute or so before the crime was discovered. You, Mr. Compline, are next door in the smoking room with your brother, and the door connecting that room with the boudoir is locked on the smoking room side. The door from here to the smoking room is shut, as you can see. So, would you please take up your positions?
I was sitting here opposite Jonathan.
Good, then would you please do so?
We were sitting here.
Oh, yes, that's right, yes.
I was in there.
Then would you mind? There's no one in there now.
Yes, very well, if I must. I trust this won't take long.
Not long, Mr. Compline, no. What happened next?
We talked about Nicholas and Hart having a row over the wireless.
And how long did that last, Lady Hersey?
About a minute. Wasn't longer, was it?
About a minute, yes.
And then Nicholas came in.
Good. You can come in now, Mr. Compline.
This is not at all pleasant for Nick, Mr. Alain.
Nor indeed for the rest of us.
I'm all right. Let's get on with it.
Thank you, Mr. Compline. Did you come straight in?
I don't know.
I do. Yes, he came in and shut the door, pausing for a second with his hand on the knob.
That's right, he shut the door.
Then please shut the door, Mr. Compline.
Perhaps one of you would be kind enough as to enlighten me precisely what I did next.
You made a face as if to say Bill was still in a mood.
And I did thumbs up and you did thumbs down, do you remember?
And then you sat down in that chair by the door.
There's the chair, Mr. Compline. Would you please sit in it?
Very well.
Now what?
Jonathan asked me to ring for drinks, but before we could do so, we heard a clink of glasses outside
Ah,
the
yes,
hall.
the drinks.
Yes.
Thomas! Thank you, Thomas. Set it down on the table just as you did last evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Imagine Thomas is now out there, tidying the hall, drawing curtains, locking doors.
Oh, I'm not enjoying this.
Hart, having earlier heard strange noises from the wireless and found the door to the smoking room locked, has left the boudoir and crossed the hall. He has mounted the stairs and reached the half landing, heading for his room. Thomas has seen him go.
In fact, I'm hating it.
Did you have your drinks?
Yes. Jonathan poured them out and...
And I said, what about William?
Yeah, Compline stuck his head in at the smoking room door and called, "Coming for a drink, Bill."
Will you please do that, Mr. Compline?
Yes. If I must.
And call, please.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Very well. You called, "Coming in for a drink, Bill," and he replied...
I think he just grunted. And then I asked him to turn on the news.
What exactly did you say?
I can't remember.
Well, I can. You said, "Do you mind switching on the wireless? It's time for the news and we'd like to hear it." Then there was a slight pause.
I heard Bill walk across to the wireless, and I called out thanks.
And then?
And then we heard the wireless, a popular song.
Hands, knees, and books, a daisy, I like a bustle that bends.
God in heaven! Get out of my way!
Take him, Mr. Compline, that'll do. Don't try anything. Fox, Bailey, take him away and charge him.
Come along, sir. Easy now. That's a good fella.
Don't look at me like that, all of you. I didn't do it. You can't prove anything against me. It was Hart.
That's enough, sir. Come along now.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, the reconstruction ends.
Well, James, good morning.
Hello, James.
Morning, sir. Morning, miss.
None the worse for your ordeal?
Weren't as bad as all that, sir.
Oh, good.
My old auntie, Miss Fancy Boolin, bides in a cottage along to Og's Corner.
Ah.
Her's 91 years of age, and so cantankerous an old masterpiece ever you did see.
Yes, well, I think we...
Howsomever, after I left you, I wasn't getting nowhere because of those snowdrifts.
Eh?
So I turned about thinking to go back to the car.
Ah.
And bless me, there it was, chacking and skittering along little twiddling like a highfold. So I called in on my auntie. Oh, she were pleased to have punched
Well, we've really got to go.
And when they two policemen arrived from London, I direct them best way to Highfold.
Yeah?
No, bless you. 'Twasn't as bad as all that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bye now.
Yes. Bye, James.
bye. Oh, dear.
Hello, you two. And where are you off to?
Morning, Elaine. We thought we'd like to go up to London for a change of scene, if that's all right with you.
Oh, so long as you're back by Wednesday for the inquest.
Oh, we promise. Mr. Elaine,
Miss Wynne.
would you care to unravel some knots?
What knots?
Well, to begin with, did Nicholas shove me into the pool?
He did.
But he recognised me. He waved to me from the pavilion.
Because he recognized you, Mandrake, he'd already decided to stage a series of apparent attempts on his own life based on an idea of mistaken identity. The incident at the pool was the first. Then he wrote himself a threatening message in a crude imitation of Hart's handwriting. And finally he rigged up the booby trap with the Buddha.
Which went wrong and landed on his arm.
Exactly.
But why? Why should he do all these things?
Eliza Lissa was an extremely mercenary lady. She was in love with Nicholas, but divorce was out of the question. A young man with little money would never persuade her to embark on a damaging scandal, but
of course.
a young man with a large estate and fine prospects. How different.
She encouraged Nick to kill William.
Oh, no, she'd never risk that. No, she really thought that Hart had done that. No doubt she planned to wait a discreet period after her husband had been hanged, and then marry Nicholas, and she will now strain every nerve to disassociate herself from him. but she will not succeed.
And Hart?
Now he knows the full truth about his wife, he'll have nothing more to do with her.
What will happen to him?
In a little while there'll be a great need for surgeons in England. I think perhaps he may yet do more admirable work than the patching up of faded women's faces.
Yes. One more thing. How on earth did Nicholas manage that business with the wireless?
Well, you remember the fishing rod above the mantelpiece in the smoking room?
Yes.
When he was supposedly sulking, Nicholas cut off a length of the line with the fly on the end of it. He hooked the fly into the screw hole of the wireless volume control, passed the line under the waveband knob and over the tuning control, forming a sort of smooth-running pulley, and fixed the other end of the line to the library door jamb with a drawing pin.
Good heavens!
All he had to do then was to tweak the line, and the hook pulled the volume control from 0 to fairly loud, while the line playing over the tuning control tuned it to the station. As the hook reached the bottom of the circuit, it fell out.
It's ingenious.
Oh, but anyone could have fixed that.
Only after William was dead. Otherwise he would have noticed it, wouldn't he? No. Nicholas killed his brother, rigged the trick with the wireless, came out and shut the door. Later, he opened the door, held a one-sided conversation with William, asked for the news, tweaked the line at the door jamb end, and waited for someone to go into the smoking room.
But what happened to the line?
Well, when you and Royal were examining William's body, Nick had only to stoop and pull the line towards him.
I see.
It appears that the drawing pin jerked away and he had no opportunity to hunt for it. In fact, you found it, Mandrake, with the sole of your boot.
That's right.
Yes. Then he gathered up the line and put it on the fire. Unfortunately for him, I found its trace among the ashes.
And the hook?
Ah, yes, the hook. That actually leads us to Mrs. Compline. They were her footprints you saw, Mandrake, when you were being helped back from the pool. She'd come out, seen Nicholas push you, and then hastily returned to her room.
Which accounts for the wet overcoat.
Yes. She was seen by her maid, looking terribly upset. At the time, she might have thought it was a dangerous piece of horseplay. But what was she to think when Nicholas accused Hart of having done it, thinking you, Mandrake, to be Nicholas himself? And what was she to think of the booby trap, when again Nicholas accused Hart? And finally, when Nicholas went to her on Saturday evening and told her Hart had killed William in mistake for himself, what was she to think then? With her secret knowledge, how could she escape the terrible conclusion that Nicholas had killed his brother?
Poor woman. Little wonder she took her own life.
Yes. Even there, in the note she left, she confessed to William's murder in a roundabout sort of way. She couldn't bring herself to say so in so many words, but Nicholas could read between the lines that she knew he had done it. And so could I. But you asked how he disposed of the hook. Well, Mrs. Compline wore a tweed hat with a yellow and black salmon fly pinned to the hatband. When I looked yesterday evening, there were 2 flies. The second was a red and green Alexander, and rather the worse for wear. Nicholas put it there after he had told his mother of William's death.
That was a rather mad thing to do, wasn't it?
All homicides want to get rid of the corpus delicti. And he was banking on his mother not noticing the second fly and the shock of William's death. No doubt he planned to dispose of it more permanently later.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Elaine.
Thank you, Miss Wynne, for all your help.
Come along, darling. Goodbye, Elaine. We'll see you on Wednesday.
I shouldn't go now, if I were you. They're just taking Nicholas to the police station.
Has he confessed?
Yes.
Then what will happen to him? Will he... Oh, God.
Darling.
I should be there now to see him go.
Jonathan and Lady Hersey are doing that. Visit him later if you wish. Now isn't the time, believe me.
Oh, there, I've got you. There, darling.
Come along now then, Mr. Compline. Step lively, the car's waiting outside.
Here they come.
Would you rather I went away, Jonathan?
It's for your sake, Hersey.
Then I'll stay.
Ah, Hersey. Jonathan. I must thank you for a quite splendid party. A great success, eh? It must have surpassed your wildest dreams.
Nicholas, If you wish me to see your solicitor or do anything else that I am able to do, you have only to send instructions.
There is one thing. Please. You can stop them hanging me.
No, you don't want to be talking like that, son.
Come along. Stop them hanging me! Stop them hanging me!
Percy,
Yes?
if I told you I've learned my lesson, could you forgive me?
No more parties?
Oh, not like this one, no. It's been a horrible nightmare. I think perhaps I do these things because I'm a bit lonely.
Too much time and too much money.
Yes. Oh, Percy, what am I to do?
What you've got to do is to think about other things. Get a new interest.
Oh, Percy.
That was Death and the Dancing Footman by Niall Marsh, which was dramatized for radio by Alan Downer, with Nigel Graham as Chief Detective Inspector Roderick Alleyne, Lawrence Payne as Jonathan Royal, and Stephen Pacey as Aubrey Mandrake. Sandra Compline was played by Avril Clark, William Compline by Stuart Organ, and Nicholas Compline by Stephen Hattersley. Jane Leonard was Cloris Wynne, Alan Downer, Dr. Francis Hart, Natasha Pine, Madame Lissa, Margaret Ward, Lady Hersey Amblington, and Elaine Claxton, Troy Elaine. James Bewling was played by Peter Tottenham, the Reverend Walter Copeland by Sean Prendergast, and Thomas by Brian Hewlett. Death and the Dancing Footman was directed by David Johnston.
We present Barry Foster and Derek Bond in Torment, a radio play by Philip Levine. Torment.
Oh, Flora, have you seen Ralph?
He went out, Mrs. Ellinger.
Did he say where?
No, never does these days. He used to be such a sociable creature. Now I'm lucky if he says hello or good morning. Oh, young people.
You haven't forgotten Mr. Ellinger and I will be out this evening.
No, he did mention something about it last night. It's your anniversary, I gather.
Yes, we're driving into Norwich for the evening.
Oh, that should be nice.
Oh, nothing spectacular, just dinner at the Star Hotel. How long ago did Ralph leave?
Oh, must be at least half an hour. He drove up towards the cliffs.
Oh?
From what I hear, he's always up there.
About the evening meal, you better lay on something cold for Ralph in case he's late.
Yes, that's what I had in mind.
Oh, Brenda, my feet are killing me.
Oh, me too. Ooh. Oh, I think I've got a blister on my heel.
I wish we'd have stopped at Great Yarmouth.
Oh, don't blame me, Daff. You were the one who wanted to hike to Cromer.
How far is it on to the next place? Have you got the map?
Yeah. It's Wintersley. Oh, that's about 5 miles.
Oh, I'd give anything for a lift.
Oh, it looks as though your prayers have been answered. There's a car coming down the cliff road.
It's a bit tatty, isn't it?
Well, thank heavens for small mercy.
I will, if it stops.
Oh, there's a young bloke driving. Nice looking, too.
I wonder if he prefers blondes or redheads.
He can take his choice. If we can't make him stop, we ought to give up. Now, just you watch this.
Hey! Hello?
Hello. Are you going as far as Wintersley?
What do you want?
Oh, a lift to Wintersley, if you could manage it. We'd be ever so grateful.
Well,
there's only the two of us, me and my friend. Oh, here she is now.
What? No, I'm sorry, I can't.
What? But it's not very far.
Let go of the door.
Oh,
what happened, Brenda?
I don't know. He took one look at you and slammed the door. Do you know him?
No, I've never seen him before. He was a bit het up, wasn't he?
Het up? I'd say he was round the bend.
Excuse me.
Yes?
There's a police station around here somewhere, isn't there?
In there, turning opposite.
Yeah.
On the other side of the road. Oh, well. You might say thank you, young man.
Oh, Constable Bartley.
Sir?
Have you filed away those charge sheets?
Oh, just on the last of them, Sergeant.
Now, what about that accident at Hemsby? Has the cyclist been in?
Oh, yes, I got his statement.
Can I...
It was a pedestrian's fault. Little doubt about that.
Yes, I thought as much. Oh, look, there's someone at the counter. See what they want.
Yes, sir. Afternoon, sir. Can I help you?
Yes, I want... I'd like... Look, is there a senior officer I could talk to?
What's it about exactly, sir?
I'm sorry, it's difficult to explain. I'd like to talk to a senior officer, if I may.
Oh, well, just hang on, will you?
Yes.
Here, son.
Yep.
That young bloke wants to talk to a senior officer. Will you handle it?
Well, what's he want?
He won't say.
Oh, all right. Let me have that cyclist statement as soon as you can, will you?
Yes, son.
Now, sir, what can I do for you?
No, look, this isn't easy. I've come to give myself up.
Oh? And for what, may I ask?
Well, I don't know how to... Well, you see, it all happened nearly a year ago. I killed someone. A girl.
You did what?
I killed a girl.
Well, how do you mean? By accident?
No.
Well, where is she?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I threw her body into the sea.
Whereabouts?
Off the cliffs, a few miles from here.
Ah, I see.
Well, what do I do? Just stand here? Aren't you going to take me into custody?
For the moment, just come round this side the counter, will you? And through here. That's the way. Now, just wait in there, will you? I'll be with you in a minute.
Did he say he killed a girl, son?
Don't bother me now, Bartley.
Ah, must be off his head. I read about cases like that in the Police Gazette.
Just get on with that report. There's a good lad.
Ah, yes, son.
Hello? CID office? Is Inspector Hadley there? Sergeant Lumsden here. Well, get him for me, would you? It's important.
Here's a statement, son.
Drop it in the tray. That's it. Hello? Inspector Hadley? I'm sorry to trouble you, sir, but I got a young bloke down here in the interview room. He marched in here not 5 minutes ago and, well, prepare yourself for a shock. He says he killed a girl. Yes, you heard right. A girl. No, about a year ago. Well, I wouldn't have thought so, sir. He is a bit on edge, but I wouldn't have said he was a nutcase. Fine, sir. I'll do that right away. Bartley, let's have a statement for him.
Yeah, son.
Ah. Oh, Inspector Hadley should be down in a sec. Yes, it's all right, son. If you want to smoke, go ahead.
Like one?
No, not for me, thanks. So far I managed to lay off. Just grab a chair, will you? That's the way. That's it. Now, first, let's have your name.
Ralph Ellinger.
You mind spelling that?
E-L-L-I-N-G-E-R.
G-E-R, I got it. Ellinger. Now, your age?
22.
Occupation?
I'm doing nothing at the moment. I was a student. Law.
Law. I see. Oh, hello, Inspector.
Sergeant.
Now, that's as far as I got with the statement, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Should I buzz off, sir?
No. I'd like you to stay, if you will.
Very good, sir.
Ralph Ellinger.
Yes.
Well, now, what's all this about, Mr. Ellinger?
Well, I've already made a statement to the sergeant.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like you to repeat it for my benefit.
About a year ago, I killed a girl. I've come to give myself up.
You've left it a little late, haven't you?
Well, does that make any difference? I'm here now. My head, it's splitting.
Oh. Would you like some water?
No, thanks. I'm all right.
Oh. Well, sit down, will you, Mr. Ellinger? Now then, this girl you say you killed, Who was she? Local girl?
No.
Well, what was her name?
Her name?
Yes, her name.
Peggy.
Peggy who?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I'd only just met her. I picked her up one night in the car.
Where?
On the road from Norwich.
Is it a habit of yours to pick up girls late at night?
No, of course not.
Well, if she wasn't a local girl, where did she come from?
Ireland.
Ireland?
Yes, she'd come over here to work during the summer.
Where?
Oh, some hotel, the Queen's in Yarmouth.
See, you've got that, Sergeant.
Sir.
What was she doing on the Norwich Road?
Hitchhiking from Liverpool. Well, Yarmouth was a little out of my way, but I said I'd give her a lift.
Go on.
Well, we stopped off at a pub for a drink, and we got quite pally. A couple of gins, and you'd thought we'd known each other for years. After we left the pub, we chatted for a bit. And then a few miles from Yarmouth, she let me kiss her. Then, well, I really can't explain it. I had my arms around her, but I couldn't let her go. She became frightened and started to struggle, and the next thing I remember, my hands were around her throat, and I felt my fingers tightening. Well, I knew what I was doing, but for some reason I couldn't stop. And suddenly she was quite still, and I knew she was dead. I must have sat there for about an hour. And then I drove up to the other side of Winsersley and threw her body over the cliffs. I watched the newspapers like a hawk, but there wasn't a word. At first I tried to push it into the back of my mind and pretend it didn't happen, that it was a bad dream.
Are you sure it wasn't?
Of course I'm sure. For heaven's sake. I killed that girl. Look, there's no doubt in my mind. I killed her, believe me. For a time I thought I could live with it, but now I can't sleep or work, and it's become unbearable. The girl's face never leaves me.
Describe her.
Oh, green eyes, pretty red hair, a gentle voice. Sweet kid, 19, 20, no more.
Well, this could be a very serious matter. You realize that, don't you, Mr. Ellinger?
Of course, but I had to come here. I don't care what happens to me.
Well, for the moment, just let's stick to the facts, shall we? When did this happen exactly?
It was at the end of June last year, the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
I came down from Cambridge for the summer vac, and when I got home, the house was empty. My father was abroad.
What on? Business?
No, on holiday with my stepmother.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was a bit depressed, to tell the truth. So I drove into Norwich for the evening. I took in a film. Then I picked up this girl on the way back.
What part of Ireland did she come from?
What? She didn't say.
Well, what did you talk about?
Oh, well, all sorts of things. She'd left home and had no intention of going back. She was hoping to settle down here.
Now, how was she dressed?
A light coat with large buttons down the front.
Any hat?
No hat. And, oh, well, everything else seems pretty hazy.
Well, just stay where you are, Mr. Ellinger, will you?
What?
I'll be back with you in a moment.
Oh, all right.
Sergeant.
Sir?
Tell me, Sergeant.
Sir?
Have there been any reports of a girl's body being washed up in the past year?
Well, no, sir. Not to my knowledge. In fact, I'm pretty sure there aren't. What do you make of him, sir? You think he is a nutcase?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. He's a bit nervy, but he's rational.
Yes.
But whether he's all there or not, well, we shall have to follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to check the missing persons list and the police gazette for a description of this girl.
Sir.
Then call the headquarters at Norwich. I'll take the boy's written statement.
Right, sir.
Now, Mr. Ellinger, I'll have to go over that again if you don't mind. So I shall need your signed statement. You can dictate it to me and I'll write it down. But first, let's have your address.
Hillside House.
Hillside House.
Riders Lane.
Riders Lane.
Wintersley.
Winters.
Miss Sanford? Miss Sanford?
Yes?
Hello, don't you recognize me? I'm Frank Ellinger, Ralph's father.
Oh, hello.
Well, we only met once, briefly. Where are you off to?
The library. I work there.
Can I give you a lift?
Oh, no, I couldn't think of bothering you.
Oh, it's no bother. Climb in. It's somewhere on the right, isn't it?
The fourth. I could have walked. It's no distance at all.
Too late now. Well, have you seen Ralph lately?
No, not for some time.
Your father's in timber, isn't he?
Yes.
Sound. Well, just tell Ralph I've seen you.
No, please don't do that.
Well, why not?
I'd rather you didn't. If you could drop me on the next corner, that'll do fine.
Right, you are.
Thank you, Mr. Ellinger.
My pleasure. Hello, darling.
Frank, you managed to get off early.
Well, a promise is a promise.
What have you got there?
Where?
Come on, show me.
Oh, this. Just a little something for you.
Darling, I can't imagine what it is.
I hope you can't.
Frank, a necklace. It must have cost you the earth.
Very nearly. But I don't grudge a penny.
You're a nice, kind man.
Oh, and I want to see it on.
Not over this dress. Wait till I've changed.
Oh, come on, over to the mirror. Here, let me.
Watch my hair. I had it set specially for tonight.
There.
It's beautiful. Quite beautiful, Frank.
So I've had something engraved on the clasp.
Oh, what does it say?
Just a happy 10th.
Did you think I'd forgotten how many?
No, but after the 5th, one's inclined to lose count.
Fool. Now wait, I've got something for you, too.
Oh, Ruth, you shouldn't.
Which means if I hadn't, you'd have been furious.
I can't even begin to guess.
Well?
Cufflinks.
What's wrong? Don't you like them?
Yes, of course.
Then what is it? Now, don't tell me you've a pair exactly like them.
Well, as a matter of fact, I have. Ralph gave me a similar pair this morning.
Ralph?
Yes, you two should have consulted each other.
But I told him I was thinking of buying you cufflinks.
Oh, did you? Well, it was obviously a misunderstanding. Oh, not to worry, I'm sure they'll change them.
That's not the point.
Now, forget it, darling. I'll take them back first thing. Oh, by the way, do you know who I bumped into as I left the jeweller's? Carol Sanford.
Carol Sanford? The girl Ralph was friendly with?
Yes, I offered her a lift. She was rather reluctant for some reason, but I turned on the old charm. I may be wrong, but I think the poor girl was quite embarrassed to see me.
Why?
I don't know. When I mentioned Ralph's name, she was, how shall we say, decidedly cool. She and Ralph must have had a tiff or something.
That doesn't surprise me.
What does that mean?
Well, let's face it, darling, that boy of yours isn't the easiest person to get along with. I know, I've tried.
Well, you're always dropping hints about Ralph. What does he do? Is he rude to you?
I wish he were, then at least I'd feel some contact. He's just...
Just what?
Indifferent. Honestly, if I happen to find myself in the same room as he is, he has the happy knack of making me feel I'm not there.
Oh, you're exaggerating.
I'm not. Believe me, Frank. And lately it's got worse.
In what way?
I don't know.
Well, look, I know he's not the easiest person to reach, but after all, the boy's been unwell. He's had a breakdown.
But that was months ago. I'd have thought he'd have recovered by now.
Well, I had another chat with Dr. Medway. These things take time.
But if only he'd make an effort. Take a holiday, go abroad somewhere. All he does is lock himself into his room or wander off on his own.
Oh, young people are like that at his age. He'll sort himself out in time. Now, how about a drink? What do you have?
The usual.
Oh, come on, snap out of it. I say, is Flora taken to the bottle?
What?
Well, this decanter was full at the weekend.
Flora's teetotal.
Ralph?
Well, I hate to carry tales.
Where is he? Upstairs?
No, he's not in. He went out soon after lunch.
Yes, I believe it was somewhere along here, Inspector.
All right, driver. Pull up.
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Ellinger, I want you to show me exactly where you picked this girl up.
It was about here. I'm pretty sure of it. I remember I was 20 or 30 yards past the junction leading to Wroxham.
She stood on this verge, you say, and waved you down?
Yes.
Well, was it dark at the time?
It was after 10, it must have been.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't miss her as you turned off toward Wintersley.
Well, there aren't any cat's eyes on this road. I had my headlights full on.
Which road did you take to Yarmouth?
The A417.
And this pub you stopped at? What was it called?
The 3 Crowns. That's a couple of miles further on.
Do you drop in there regularly?
No, it was the first and last time.
All right. Back in the car. That pub's our next port of call. Can you recall who served you, Mr. Ellinger?
Oh, yes. The man with the paunch behind the bar.
All right. Let's go up to the counter.
Yes, sir. What'll it be?
I'm a police officer.
Oh, yes. What can I do for you?
This young gentleman with me. Have you ever seen him before?
I can't say that I have.
No, don't rush it. Take your time. This is very important.
See here. What's this all about?
That's not your worry. Now, do you recognize him?
Let me see. No. No, I don't.
I was with a young girl, Irish. She had red hair and wore a light coat.
How long ago was this?
About a year.
A year? Good grief. That's going back a bit. Do you know how many customers I get in here every day? Hundreds. Almost every other car stops here.
I dare say. But do try and remember.
What time did you come in?
About 10:15.
Oh, that's our busiest spell. At that time, I can't tell one face from t'other. If you'd have dropped in last night, I wouldn't remember you.
Oh, come along, Mr. Ellinger.
Really?
Thank you, sir. I'm obliged to you for your help.
That's all right.
This is the place, Inspector. I parked the car at the top of the cliff road, and then I carried her body over to the edge.
Here, you say?
Yes. It was very windy that night. I had a job to keep my balance.
Was the tide in or out?
Oh, I can't be sure. It was pretty dark. It was in, I think.
All right, Mr. Ellinger. Well, we'll try that hotel in Yarmouth.
Do come in, gentlemen.
Oh, my credentials, Mr. Carstairs.
Yes, of course, sir.
This is Mr. Ellinger.
How do you do? Will you take a seat?
No, thanks. We're in something of a hurry, Mr. Carstairs. We're trying to trace a girl.
Girl?
Yes, we've very little to go on, but we believe she was coming to work here.
When exactly?
Last June.
Well, if she did come, we can soon trace her. Check my files. What's the girl's name?
Peggy. We've no surname.
Oh, well, frankly, every other kitchen maid's called Peggy.
No, she was Irish. Around 20, with red hair and green eyes.
It sounds like one of a dozen who've worked here in recent years. I tell you the truth, most of our farm labour's Italian these days. They come over by the boatload. No, I'm sorry, I've no correspondence with an Irish girl at the time you mentioned.
But she told me she was coming here.
Oh, probably on the off chance. We're always short of staff, and if she'd come, we'd certainly have taken her on. I'm afraid I've got no record of her.
She was about 22, 23. You got that? Red hair, green eyes, wearing a light coat with large buttons down the front. No, there's no photograph. You don't have to tell me that, look. I know it's not much to go on, but it's all we got. Well, she come by Liverpool, someone might have seen her. Lorry driver, maybe. Well, keep in touch, boy. Oh, hello, Inspector. I just been out in Norwich, and I also chat with Liverpool.
Well?
You were right. She wouldn't need no passport to travel from Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And by boat, there'd be no record. It's just like buying a railway ticket.
Well, what about missing persons?
I checked while I was on headquarters. No one of that description on the list. And the only bodies washed up during the past year were 2 elderly people, both identified. How do you fare, sir?
Oh, no luck at the pub or the hotel.
Well, I suppose 'tis a bit dicey after a year, but it does seem odd that no one's reported her missing. Her family, I mean.
Well, that depends. If she left home, they probably wouldn't give it a second thought.
Yes. I suppose there's no chance that our young friend in there is pulling our legs?
I won't pretend, Sergeant, that thought had crossed my mind.
Well, you know what some of those college chaps are like, sir. Anything for a lark.
I know that only too well. No, don't get up, Mr. Ellinger. Oh, no. You care for a smoke?
No, not just now, thanks.
Oh, maybe I won't either. Mr. Ellinger, I know Wintersley's just a small town, but believe me, we're pretty busy here. And although we seem like country yokels, we don't take kindly to tomfoolery or practical jokes.
I don't quite
Oh,
see
just
it.
let me finish, will you? I was young myself once, and I know the sort of pranks that students get up to.
Pranks?
I remember painting a statue bright yellow, and for months I was the hero of the school.
No, I assure you, Inspector.
Well, whatever your reason, you've wasted my entire afternoon and put my staff to a great deal of trouble. Now, the truth is, we have no trace of this girl. In fact, no reason to believe that she ever existed. Now, if you care to retract this statement, apologize and give me your assurance that it won't happen again, you can leave here without further ado.
But I tell you, I did kill this girl.
Why?
Why?
Yes, why?
Well,
There's usually a motive.
I told you, it was on a sudden impulse. There's nothing more than that.
Oh, come now, Mr. Ellinger. You look an intelligent chap to me. I'm sure you know when a joke's gone far enough.
I swear to you, this is not a joke.
Mr. Ellinger, you realize if you persist in this story, I shall have to notify your family. This could be serious for them as well as for you.
Well, of course I realize that.
And you still insist that you killed this girl?
Yes.
Very well. Then you leave me no alternative.
Frank,
Would
you zip me up?
Just a minute. Where's a towel?
Here you are.
Oh, thanks. You look stunning.
You look frightful.
Give me a chance. Spot of brilliantine, a touch of aftershave, and I'll be a different man.
No, I shan't like that at all.
There. Smell that.
Irresistible.
Me or the aftershave?
I'm still waiting to be zipped up.
Turn round. Zip. There you are.
Thank you. Now do hurry up or we should be late.
Oh, no, there's no hurry. They serve till about 11.
I'm not waiting for my dinner till 11. In an hour I shall be famished.
Then ask Flora to fix you a sandwich.
Really?
Where's my tie?
Here. No, let me. I'm an expert.
Is, Ralph back yet?
I haven't seen him.
Oh, well, I thought we'd all have a drink together.
There we are.
Oh, thanks.
He's probably gone to a cinema. I've arranged with Flora to leave him something cold. Your jacket?
Ah, tar. Now, let's make sure I've got everything. Watch, handkerchief, wallet.
Don't forget that, whatever you do.
Yes, come in.
Sorry to bother you, sir.
Yes, what is it, Flora?
There's an inspector on the telephone. He asked to speak to you.
Inspector? Oh, don't tell me there's a burglary at the office. Shan't be a moment, Ruth. Hello? Yes, speaking. Yes. Yes, I see. Well, what's the trouble exactly? And can't you be more specific? Look, I'm just on my way out. Oh, very well, I'll be down. Goodbye.
What is it, darling?
Believe it or not, Ralph's down at the police station.
What's happened?
Oh, Lord only knows. Another car accident, I expect.
Oh, no.
He couldn't have chosen a better night, could he? Oh, Flora.
Yes, sir?
Ring the Star Hotel in Norwich, would you? I've booked a table. Tell them we may be a little late.
This girl's coat, Mr. Ellinger. I'd like you to describe it again, if you would.
But, Inspector, how many times do I have to...
Please, Mr. Ellinger. The coat.
It was loose-fitting with large buttons down the front.
What color?
Green.
But you described it as a light coat in your first statement.
I meant the buttons were green. The coat was fawn or grey. I can't be sure.
So I gather. Now, the pub you visited was the Three Crowns at Pooley?
No, Wroxham.
And she was going to work at the Queen at Cromer?
Yes. No, Yarmouth. Oh, look, I'm tired and you're confusing me.
Yes, I'm becoming a little confused myself.
Don't you believe anything I say?
I'm trying, Mr. Ellinger. Believe me, I'm trying. Yes?
He's arrived, sir.
Oh, thank you, Sergeant. Your father's here.
So?
You still sticking to this statement?
I am.
Very well, sir. Just remain here for a moment. Mr. Frank Ellinger?
Yes?
Inspector Hadley, CID.
Oh, how are you? This is my wife.
Oh, how do you do, Mrs.
How do you
Ellinger?
do?
Well, pleased to come through, won't you?
Thank you.
Well, now, what's this boy of mine been up to?
Well, sir, I think we'd better read this statement.
Thank you.
It was entirely voluntary. I took down the details, but the boy signed it, as you can see.
You say Ralph made the statement?
Yes, in the presence of my sergeant and me.
May I, Fred?
It's ludicrous. You're surely not taking it seriously?
Well, sir, I can hardly dismiss it. In fact, I've already made some preliminary inquiries.
And?
Well, so far, I must admit there's no evidence to support this.
Yes, I can promise you there won't be.
Oh?
Oh, I wish you'd have contacted me sooner, Inspector. It would probably have saved you a great deal of time and trouble. You see, about 6 months ago, my son had a serious nervous breakdown.
Oh, is that a fact?
Yes, I'm afraid he overdid things up at the university.
Ah, now who's been treating him, sir?
Dr. Medway. I can let you have his address.
Well, now, that does throw a different light on the matter.
I thought it might.
Not that I could have charged him, sir. There's not a prima facie case. On this evidence, I couldn't hold him even if I'd wanted to, providing, of course, he's not a danger to himself or others.
This hasn't got to the press, has it?
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, thank heaven for that. I've my business to think of. Where is the boy?
Next door. This way, sir.
Now, don't worry, Ruth, don't worry. Everything will be all right.
Your father's here, Mr. Ellinger.
Hello, Ralph. We've come to take you home.
You've what?
We've come to take you home. Now, everything's arranged. You're not to worry.
No, but I've made a statement.
Yes, we know all about that, but you're not to worry about a thing.
No, but I killed this girl.
Now try and look at this intelligently, Ralph. You've been ill.
The sooner we get you home, the sooner we can straighten things out.
There's nothing to straighten out. Look, you've been wondering why I didn't go back to Cambridge. Well, this was the reason. The breakdown was an excuse.
Yes, we'll talk about it later.
No, but
you can't stay here. The police have no jurisdiction to hold you.
Is that right, Inspector?
Yes, it is.
But I've confessed, haven't I? I mean, you've got it there in black and white. I've told you how I killed her, when and where. What more do you want?
I'm afraid I can't argue with you, sir.
You think I imagined it all, or that I'm off my head?
No one's suggesting that, Ralph. But you need help. Don't you see that?
It's the truth. It may be unpalatable, but I can't help that.
Now, come along, Ralph.
I should, if I were you, sir.
My car's parked outside.
I can find my own way, thanks.
Believe me, Ellinger, you've really nothing to worry about.
All the same, Denton, I thought you ought to know about it.
I'm glad you came. But remember, I'm a solicitor, not a criminal lawyer. Though from what you've told me, I'm quite sure the police won't proceed further. I should just forget about it if I were you.
But how can I? He still insists he killed this girl.
Have you consulted a doctor?
Yes, I was on Medway's doorstep first thing.
And what did he have to say?
Well, he's one of these GPs of the old school. He seems confused as I am. Mumbled something about a sedative, and finally suggested I call in someone else.
A psychiatrist?
Yes.
Well, that's exactly what you ought to do. Look, there's a chap who's given evidence for us on several occasions. Rooney's his name. Very reliable. I'll get you his address. But in the first instance, I should get Medway to write him.
Yes, Flora?
The gentleman's arrived, sir.
Show him in, Flora.
Oh, this way, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Rooney, how do you do?
How are you?
Frank Ellinger.
Sorry I couldn't get here before today. It's not my usual practice.
No, it was good of you to come.
It's a very attractive house you have here.
You like it? Yes, I bought it when I remarried. We've been here 10 years. My business is in Norwich, but I prefer to live a little way out.
I envy you. I'm surrounded by industry. Oh. But as most of my patients are executives, I mustn't complain.
No. You'd like to get rid of your coat?
Oh, thanks.
I should drop it over the back of the chair.
Here?
Yes. Can I offer you a drink?
Not for me, thank you. But you go ahead. I gather you, from Dr. Medway's letter, you've had a spot of trouble.
That's putting it mildly. It's been like living on the edge of a volcano. I've tried talking some sense into the boy, but he won't budge. And Dr. Medway thought it would be a good idea to call someone in.
And do you? Think it's a good idea?
Well, since you ask, frankly, no. After all, it's...
I know. Better a fracture or an ulcer in the family than mental illness, eh?
Well, since you put it like that...
What exactly is it you want me to do?
Well, I'm not sure. See the boy, I suppose. Talk to him. Find some reason for his fantastic behavior.
And treat him?
Naturally.
So there's little doubt in your mind that he is mentally ill?
I wouldn't put it quite so strongly as that. He's got some bee in his bonnet, that's all.
But bees come in many varieties.
Well, what I mean is he doesn't seem off his head to me. He's under some strain or another, but let's face it, who isn't today?
True.
He's probably got what you chaps call neurosis, don't you think?
I rarely diagnose at second hand.
Well, I don't think he's insane.
But that would be more acceptable than having a murder in the family.
Acceptable is hardly the word. Preferable, perhaps. But then his whole story is a complete fabrication, so why discuss it? It's caused me a great deal of embarrassment, I can tell you that. And I'm anxious to get to the bottom of it.
Psychiatry to the rescue, eh? You know, Mr. Ellinger, daily I'm consulted by counsel, sometimes by the defense, sometimes by the prosecution, often about the same case. Both want solutions, but always the one that suits them. There's a check if you can oblige, the way out if you can't. A great many doors are closed behind me. I'm afraid I can't tailor my diagnosis to save you embarrassment. But if you want the truth, then perhaps I can help.
That is all I want.
Then I'll see your boy. Does he know you've consulted me?
I did mention it, casually.
What did he say?
Nothing, he just smiled. Won't be plain sailing.
Never is. Now, I'd like to make a few notes on his background, if you'll bear with me.
Oh, certainly, of course.
Right. Now, Ralph's age is...
22.
And his general health?
Until his breakdown, excellent.
Any complaints of headaches, throat trouble, any other aches and pains?
No, not as far as I know.
Any history of insanity in the family?
Certainly not.
Good. Now, if I remember rightly, Dr. Medway mentioned he had been up at Cambridge.
Yes, studying law.
How did he get on?
Very well, above average, I believe.
Mm-hmm. As a child, was he very imaginative?
Not unduly so, no.
This is your second marriage?
Yes, his mother died when he was 11.
How did he take his mother's death?
He was away at school at the time. I didn't see him till after the funeral. He seemed to take it very well.
How soon after did you remarry?
Is that relevant?
If it wasn't, I shouldn't have asked.
6 months.
Did you talk to him about it?
We had a chat. He seemed unconcerned. He was more interested in a new fishing rod.
Uh-huh. How does he get on with his stepmother?
Well enough. Ralph's never been what I'd call demonstrative.
And with you?
Not too badly. To tell you the truth, he's a bit on the arty side, if you know what I mean. He wanders around with his head in the clouds. Half the time I don't know what he's talking about.
Has he any girlfriends?
Yes, he had one.
What sort of a girl?
Nice sort of girl. Works in the local library. Her name's Carol Sanford.
Mm-hmm. Sanford.
Yes, that fizzled out some time ago. Don't ask me why.
When did you first notice any change in his behavior?
Well, now I come to think of it. About a year ago. And just after my wife and I got back from abroad. He'd shut himself away in his room, wouldn't talk to anyone, and started helping himself to my drink.
I take it he's never been in trouble with the police before?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Frank. I've just got back. I didn't know you had anyone with you.
Oh, this is Dr. Rooney, my wife.
How do you do?
Hello, Mrs. Ellinger.
I only came in to remind you that we're dining with the Frosts.
Ah, yes.
Also, I've managed to get 2 seats for the concert.
Ah, splendid. Well, Dr. Rooney, you will want to see Ralph, I expect.
If I may.
He's in his room. I'll take you up.
Oh, forgive me, I did not.
Please, one moment.
I see we have the same taste, Mr. Ellinger. Bartok, I've the Philharmonic recording.
Really, I don't care for it myself.
Well, that divan looks very comfortable. I'm Dr. Rooney, by the way.
Yes, the trick cyclist. Interpreter of dreams, repressions, obsessions, and phallic symbols.
I'm flattered. I've never looked on myself as anything more than a good listener.
Then if I know my father, you've already earned your fee. I'm sure he's given you the complete picture.
If he had, I shouldn't be here.
Oh, and you'll find me a fascinating case. An unstable personality abounding in complexes and delusions.
You look pretty stable to me.
Ah, naughty. You should know better, Doctor. Never judge a book by its cover. I mean, to look at me, you'd never believe I killed a charming, helpless girl, would you? That these hands had squeezed the life out of her without rhyme or reason. No, of course not. Well, don't worry, Doctor, you're in good company. It is odd, though, isn't it? We spend millions on the detection of crime, but confess. Offer yourself on a plate. And the truth isn't enough. They want evidence, witnesses. And if you can't produce them, they sentence you to live with it.
You'll be surprised at the number of people who daily confess to crimes they've never committed. 2 or 3 of them arrive in my consulting room every week. If the laws of evidence weren't there to protect them, they'd spend half their lives in jail.
Suppose one of your patients were guilty.
I've yet to meet one. They're usually people who are frustrated, rejected. Some need the limelight and publicity. Others seek punishment to allay certain guilt feelings.
Thanks for the lecture. Sorry I can't fit into one of your pigeonholes.
Do you smoke?
On occasions, like a chimney.
Do help yourself.
Yes, thanks. This is one of them.
Now, Mr. Ellinger.
Ralph, please. Informality will help establish transference, don't you think?
Well, Ralph, I'd like to ask you a question, if I may.
Whether I object or not, you'll ask it, so go ahead.
Now, supposing I was to tell you that 2 or 3 years ago I'd killed someone, and now I'd come along to confess, what would you say?
I'd wonder how you managed to hold out that long. I only lasted a year.
Why didn't you confess right away?
What a question. Because I was afraid. Afraid of being found out, caught, punished. It's only natural, isn't it?
Yes.
I wasn't insane. I knew I'd killed the girl. I knew I'd done wrong. I didn't relish the thought of ending up with a rope round my neck.
Then why this sudden change of heart?
Oh, because there are things that go on inside of one that I never knew about. Call it conscience, call it what you like. You know, it's ironic. I was a law student of all things. Well, I found I couldn't attend a lecture without being reminded of what I'd done. Couldn't see a girl in the street without thinking of her, the feeling of her body suddenly going limp. Her eyes, the wind against my face as I dropped her body over the cliff. And then the sudden fear when I found...
Yes, go on.
When I found...
What is it, Ralph?
Oh, good God! How could I have forgotten that?
Forgotten what, Ralph?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
What's the trouble?
It's my jacket you're sitting on. Do you mind?
But where are you off to?
So, I imagined it all, did I? We'll see.
Where are you going?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Ralph, what are you doing down here?
I'm going out.
Where to?
That's my business.
Ralph, I'm talking to you.
You let go of my arm.
Have you seen Dr. Rooney?
Yes, I've seen him.
What is it, Frank? What's happened?
God knows. Rooney, what's going on?
I don't know.
Ralph, would you mind telling me where you're going?
If you must know, to the police.
For God's sake, haven't you caused enough trouble? What are you going to do now?
Tell them about the handbag.
Handbag? What handbag?
The girl's. The one I killed. I found it in the car the following day.
Where is it?
I threw it in the marsh along the Norwich Road.
Sergeant, I'd like a word with you.
Come in, sir.
I hope you don't object to my presence, Inspector.
Why should I, Mr. Ellinger?
Oh, blast. My right foot's a soaking. There must be a leak in my boot.
Excuse me a moment, Mr. Ellinger.
Yes, of course.
How's it going, Lumsden?
No luck so far. We've covered the North Marsh for about half a mile, not a sausage.
What's the bottom like?
Pretty muddy.
How far out have you been?
About 50 yards, and that's a great deal further than anyone could throw a handbag.
Have you found anything?
Yep, the usual. Bicycle frames, a few wheels, and an old brass bedstead. I'm thinking of going into the old iron business.
Not a bad idea. Here, I say.
Huh?
Whose kids are those?
Oh, I don't know. Probably from that cottage across the marsh, I should think.
Better give them a shout. Isn't safe for them to be playing around here.
Right, sir.
And you and the lads had better work down the south side.
Oh, blast, the boys will love that. Hey, you kids, out of it. Go on. It's dangerous to play here, look.
Inspector, you don't really expect to find anything, do you?
I'm sorry, sir, but having received this information, it's my duty to act on it.
Yes, I appreciate that, but the boy's obviously unwell. Today it's a handbag in the marsh. Tomorrow he'll come up with some other cock and bull story.
Right, go, come on. No, not a bigger stone as that. This one, yes.
Not once. You get stuck in that marsh and you'll find yourselves in real trouble.
Well, what are all those men doing out there, mister? Are you coppers?
Never you mind. Now go on. Back home.
Laura, has Ralph gone out?
No, ma'am. He's in the study.
Thank you. It's all right, Ralph. You don't have to hide that bottle behind your back. If you want a drink, you're welcome to it.
I don't know why I bother. It doesn't help.
Then why do you?
It's thirst quenching.
I wish I could understand you. You've everything a boy could want.
Is that so?
Yet you carry a chip on your shoulder the size of a house.
God, you talk in cliches, don't you?
What is it you want, Ralph?
From you, nothing.
From anybody. You walk around with a face as long as a week.
Here we go again.
You imagine I'm something of a fool, don't you? Well, I'm not.
I love people who ask you a question and then answer it themselves.
Oh, I know you've never liked me. There's no need to pretend. You look on me as something of an intruder, don't you?
I've never really thought about it.
Then it's about time you started thinking. What can you hope to achieve by this story?
I'm not with you.
What do you hope to gain by it? Can't you see what it's doing to your father? Is it some way of hitting back at him?
Oh, for God's sake.
Don't turn your back on me. You know what I'm talking about.
Do I?
The truth is, you resent the attention he pays to me. You always have, ever since I came into the house. Don't deny it. I've noticed the way you look at me.
You're way off the beam. I couldn't care less about you.
I don't believe a word. You're jealous. I don't have to be a psychiatrist to see that.
You and Rooney would make a fine pair. Well, won't you join me, Mother?
Ralph, please listen to me. You know very well you never killed that girl. Your statement's a lie from beginning to end. There's no bag. There never was a bag. Now, why don't you admit it? Admit it.
They're back.
What?
I heard a car door.
Oh. It's your father's.
I knew it. They've found the bag.
Frank, what's happened?
Ralph, come here. Put down that glass and come here. Don't let me have to ask you again.
Well, let's hear the glad tidings.
They didn't find anything.
What?
The police didn't find any bag.
Oh, but I took them down there. I showed them where I threw it.
They've had a dozen men there the entire day. They've searched for half a mile either side of the road. They didn't find anything.
Well, perhaps I made a mistake. It was dark when I threw it out, and the car was moving.
You're ill. You realize that, don't you? What you believe is the truth is just a figment of your imagination. Try and understand.
No, I tell you, I threw her bag into the marsh.
Ralph, if this goes on, sooner or later it'll get into the press. You want that to happen?
All you can think about is the press and your business. It's never occurred to you that I might be telling the truth. No. Well, let me repeat it once again. I killed that girl. Is that clear? I killed her. Not from spite or malice or any reason that I know, but I killed her, and I'll prove it to you. Somehow I'll prove it to you.
Mr. Gray?
That's me.
I'm Inspector Hadley. I've driven over from Wintersley. I won't keep you a moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're the chap who called by yesterday when I was out.
That's right, yes.
My wife did mention something. It was my market day. Oh, I'm sorry I've given you an extra journey.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, these dreaded kids.
It's mine.
Here, stop that noise, will you? If you want to play, go into the yard.
It's got my ball.
Well, there's half a dozen others in the shed. Now go on, round the back, both on you. Ah, little devils.
Your kids?
Mm-hmm.
I saw them playing in the marsh yesterday. It's pretty treacherous out there, though.
Oh, I shouldn't worry about them. It's been their playground since they were so high. Now, what's it you want to see me about?
Oh, just a routine call. We were led to understand that a woman's bag was thrown into the marsh a short distance from here.
Handbag?
Yes. A light plastic affair with broad stitching and a shoulder strap. I wondered if either you or your wife had seen anything like it floating around.
When was it thrown there, do you know?
Well, some time back. Last year, in fact.
No, I haven't come across it.
I'm sure my wife had mentioned it if she had.
Well, I'm sorry to have troubled you. Thank you for your help again, Mr. Gray.
I've been looking all over for you, Sip. I'd almost given up.
I called back to see Mr. Gray, without much success.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, well, now, what's your problem, Lumsden?
Well, sir, I got a friend of yours outside.
Oh? Who?
Young Ellinger.
Oh, no. Not again.
Yup. Should I send him packing or get on the blower to his father?
No. Let's have him in.
Sir. Inspector, see you, Mr. Ellinger. Go on in.
All right, Sergeant.
Sir.
It was good of you to see me, Inspector.
Oh, what is it this time, Mr. Ellinger?
Look, I'm sorry about the bag. I know you've been put to a great deal of trouble.
That's the understatement of the year.
But it is somewhere in the marsh, believe me. I might have thrown it further on. You see, I was travelling at about 30 miles an hour.
Mr. Ellinger, just take a look at this map, will you? There are thousands of acres of marshland between here and Norwich, and it'd take my men a month of Sundays to cover that area.
Yes.
Now, look here, son. Why don't you go home like a good boy? You know, I'm getting just a little tired of you, Mr. Ellinger.
Do you know where I've been for the last couple of hours?
No, do tell me.
Down to the seafront.
Oh, I wish I could have joined you. Instead, I've been gallivanting around the countryside, and to no avail.
Look, I'm sorry you couldn't find the bag.
Not half as sorry as I am.
But maybe this will convince you.
What is it?
It's one of her buttons, off her coat.
Where'd you get this?
I found it on the beach, among the rocks below the cliff.
Oh? How do I know that?
What?
How do I know you found this button on the beach?
Because I'm telling you.
But you've told me so many things, haven't you?
But it's off her coat, I'm sure of it, and I swear to you I found it at the foot of the cliff.
Well, even if you had, what would it prove?
I don't understand.
Did anyone else see the girl in the coat?
Well, in the pub.
They don't remember you. Besides, these buttons are manufactured in the 100,000. Oh, for goodness sake, man, use your head.
But
you think I'm being unreasonable, don't you? But my job isn't to prove a man guilty or innocent. As a law student, you should know that in a capital charge, I merely submit a report to the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Yes, I do know that.
And only then can I make an arrest. Now, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? I ask you. You see, I suppose you think that I've been neglectful, don't you? Well, believe me, I haven't. I've been in touch with Liverpool, circulated your description of the girl, checked with missing persons both here and in Ireland. I've even spoken to the hydrographic section of the Admiralty to check the tides last year. They said it was possible that a body might have been carried toward the coast of Germany. So, the Yard have even spoken to Interpol, without any success, I might add. I've checked with everyone who could have been of the slightest help. Well, you'll agree that we've been pretty thorough, eh?
Yes.
But you haven't produced a single witness or an item of evidence to substantiate any part of your story. Can you blame me for being skeptical? No, I haven't come across many murderers in my time, but the few I have met have been very anxious not to be caught. Well, doesn't your behavior strike you as rather odd?
You don't realize what's going on inside me.
Well, that's hardly my province. But if you want my candid opinion, son, you need a rest. Now, you go away for a spell. But whatever you do, I don't want to see you here again. And for your father's sake, stay out of trouble.
Oh, Miss Haynes, I told you I didn't want to be disturbed. I'm working on the Mansfield estimate.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ellinger, but it's Mr. Ryder from the Gazette. He said it was very urgent.
Frank, forgive me for barging in like this.
Oh, Bill, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. All right, Miss Haynes.
Yes, sir.
I was going to telephone, but on second thoughts I decided to make it a personal call.
Pull up a chair.
No, I haven't time for a cosy chat. We go to press today. Now, let me come straight to the point and then get the hell away out of here.
What's up with you?
I, found your boy waiting in my office when I got back from lunch.
Oh, yes?
He spilled me a fantastic story. Well, frankly, it made my hair stand on end.
How about a girl, an Irish girl?
Oh, yes, you know about it?
Yes, I certainly do. It's been going on for some time now. I've had to call in a psychiatrist.
Oh, I thought as much. Yeah, I remember you telling me he hadn't been well.
Nothing's leaked out, has it?
No, of course not. There's no question of publication.
Well, I'm very grateful to you, Bill.
Oh, don't thank me, please. Look, if there's anything I can do...
Not just now.
No. Well, I'd better get back to the office. Give my love to Ruth.
Yes, I will. Oh, Miss Haynes.
Yes, Mr. Ellinger.
Call this number, will you, and get Dr. Rooney on the line.
I'm sorry I couldn't get here sooner, but I was delayed at the hospital.
Well, Dr. Rooney, I had a call from the inspector. Ralph's been down to the police station again.
When was this?
Before lunch. This time about a button he said he'd found on the beach. I'm surprised Hadley didn't put him under lock and key.
The boy's not certifiable, at least not in my opinion.
You might change your mind when you hear the rest. He then called in at the offices of the Gazette. It's a good job the editor's a friend of mine, I can tell you, or his confession might have been splashed across the front page. You would hardly describe that as normal behaviour, would you?
I know it's distressing for you.
Distressing, good God.
Look, I'd like Ralph to be at my consulting room tomorrow morning.
Why?
I think it might be an idea to exclude the possibility of any physical abnormality. Say 11:30.
I'll do what I can, but I'll probably need a team of wild horses.
I'll relieve you of that jacket, Ralph, and onto the couch.
Leave my shoes on?
Yes, that's all right. When I've done this encephalogram, my nurse will take a blood sample, and then I want you to go across to the hospital for an X-ray.
It must be costing my father a packet.
You talk as though he keeps you short.
Oh, heaven forbid, no, he's generous, more than generous.
Then why don't you like him?
Did I say that?
Just raise your head a little. Now, don't worry about these wires. They won't give you a shock or anything.
It's an odd gadget. I feel as though I'm about to be launched into space.
Yeah, I'm almost through. There. Now, I shall ask you to do one or two things. Just do them, but don't talk.
You're asking a lot.
Ready?
Yes.
Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. Now, close your eyes. Open them. Now, close them again. Fine, that's all.
Can I open them?
Yes, but no, stay where you are. Just let me get rid of this paraphernalia. Tell me, what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, books, music.
No friends?
I find it difficult enough to contend with myself.
Your father mentioned a girl you were friendly with, a Miss Sandford.
Oh, did he?
What was she like?
Oh, upper crust intellectual. Pretty.
Sounds promising.
Yes. Well, if you're through, where do I go for this blood test?
Yes, sir. Could I help you?
Yes, I wonder if you could tell me where I can find Miss Sandford.
Oh, she's about somewhere. Oh, she's with the trolley. Over there by the fine arts section.
Oh, thank you. Miss Sandford?
Yes?
Oh, forgive me. My name is Dr. Rooney.
Oh, if it's the medical section you want, it's just on the other side of the gangway.
No, this is a personal matter.
Oh?
I really shouldn't be bothering you. Please carry on.
What is it you want to see me about?
I believe you know a young man called Ralph Ellinger.
I did.
He happens to be a patient of mine.
Oh, is he ill?
Well, he's not exactly ill.
I think I understand. You're a psychiatrist, aren't you?
You don't seem very surprised.
I'm not.
May I ask why?
Must I talk about it? I'd rather not.
Might help.
All right. What is it you want to know?
When did you stop seeing Ralph?
6 or 7 months ago.
You know I expect that he had a breakdown.
Yes, I did hear something about it. Oh, but it wasn't on my account, I promise you. As a matter of fact, I wrote to him when I heard, but he never replied.
You knew him well, though.
Very. At one time we were... Oh, that was all over a long time ago.
What went wrong exactly?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. For some unaccountable reason, he became remote, detached. he began to drink. He'd let me down, and when we did meet, we did nothing but quarrel.
About what?
Oh, anything, everything.
Mm-hmm. Did he ever mention a girl called Peggy to you?
Peggy? Peggy who?
An Irish girl. That's all I know about her.
No, he never mentioned her to me. Who is she?
I'm not sure myself at the moment. Now, what I'm going to ask you may seem a little odd. Was he ever violent towards you in any way?
Who, Ralph?
Now, this is very important, Miss Sanford. Was he ever aggressive towards you?
Good heavens, no. Why'd you ask? Oh, what's happened?
Oh, nothing for you to worry about. Now, about his behavior. To your knowledge, did he ever avoid certain places?
It's odd you should ask me that. We used to go for walks along the cliffs, and then suddenly he refused to go up there.
Did he say why?
No, he wouldn't give any reason. I can't tell you why, but at times he frightened me.
Shh! Miss Tretter's most disturbing.
Oh, I'm sorry, madam. I'm afraid I haven't been much help, Dr. Rooney.
On the contrary, I'm very grateful. Goodbye, Miss Sanford.
Goodbye.
Oh, Frank, I'm glad you're back early.
Why, has Rooney arrived?
No, but there is someone waiting to see you. A Mr. Preedy.
Preedy? I don't know any Preedy.
Well, if you'd rather not see him...
No, no, all right. Ask Flora to whip up some tea, will you?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Ellinger? Mr. Frank Ellinger?
Yes?
I am Joseph Preedy, of the Preedy Investigation Bureau, Charnley Street, Norwich. My card.
Yes, Mr. Preedy.
You will understand, sir, that it is not usual for a member of my profession to betray a client's confidence. But, on the other hand, there are occasions when one has to draw the line. If you know what I mean, sir.
I don't at the moment, but do go on.
Well, let me put it like this, sir. There are times when I am asked to do something which may appear a trifle odd. Oh, you'd be amazed at the number of crackpots who wind up in front of my desk. Watch my neighbour's wife or trace my ginger Tom.
Yes, I'd be grateful if you'd be a little more precise, Mr. Preedy.
Of course. A young man by the name of Ralph Ellinger arrived in my office this afternoon.
My son, you say?
So I have since ascertained. He asked me to assist him in an investigation, the investigation of a murder.
Oh.
Now, sir, it is not the first time I have been approached on such matters. The Preedy Investigation Bureau has a reputation...
Yes, quite, but do please keep to the point.
Well, sir, you can imagine my surprise when your son stated he had committed the murder. I was a trifle shaken, to say the least. And you do see the quandary I was in, don't you, sir?
Yes, I do.
Without offence, it was obviously a case of... non compos mentis, so I felt it my duty to follow him, sir, and this I did.
Yes, I'm more than grateful to you, Mr. Preedy. You're quite right. My son is unwell. It was good of you to let me know of this incident. Please do send me a bill to cover any out-of-pocket expenses.
Oh, that is most kind of you, sir. Oh, most kind of you indeed.
Well, from the x-rays, Mr. Ellinger, there's certainly no disease of the central nervous system.
Somehow it would have been a relief if there was. At least we'd have put our finger on it.
Are you sure you won't have any tea, Doctor?
No thinking, Mrs. Ellinger. The encephalogram was normal, and so were the blood tests. I've no doubt the boy's physically sound.
What about his mental condition?
Well, he's intelligent, well-orientated. His memory's a little hazy, but then there are no symptoms of mental disease.
Look, Doctor, do you know what that boy did this afternoon? He visited a private detective in Norwich to help him investigate. He's obviously unbalanced.
I wouldn't have described him in that way.
Well, how would you describe him?
He's not specifically sick, but greatly disturbed. From the few talks I've had with him and the tests I've carried out, I'd say he was emotionally immature.
That's a little vague, isn't it?
To put it bluntly, he hasn't grown up.
He's grown up enough to go and lie to the police.
I'd call that childish. On occasions, he has a slight withdrawal from reality, but then so do we all. When we daydream, for example.
Oh, this is all so much mumbo-jumbo. Can you clear this condition up? That's what I want to know.
In time, yes.
How long?
I'm not a contractor. I can't give you a delivery date. Psychoanalysis is a lengthy process. Weeks, months, years in some cases.
I thought there were drugs you could use.
There are. Pentothal, methadone. But it's a drastic, painful way.
Surely this calls for drastic action. My position's intolerable, don't you see that?
If it'll help to get at the truth.
But even if I use a drug, there's no guarantee.
But surely it's worth a try.
Very well, providing the boy agrees.
Where should I go, Doctor? On the divan?
Yes, I think you'll be comfortable there. But jacket off, sleeve up.
Sure. You know, the last time I had an injection was at school. There were about 50 of us. By the time they got to me, the needle was blunt. I hope that one's nice and sharp.
As a needle.
I can't bear syringes.
I'll turn your head the other way if you prefer.
What are you giving me?
A little pentothal.
To eliminate deception and reveal the truth, eh?
Now, that's somewhat exaggerated. Let's say it lowers the barriers and helps one relive certain experiences.
So you still think I'm lying?
Have I ever said you were? Now, just hold your arm still. This won't hurt. Now, just put on this lamp. Draw the curtains. Now, don't you fidget. You lie still.
Did I tell you I'd thought of suicide?
No.
Oh, well, I had. Often. But I hadn't the guts. I don't know how I walked into that police station. You know, Doctor, this may interest you. Before I left the university, I was writing a thesis on crime and society. And do you know what I think? People want their pound of flesh providing it's not from the family circle. Morality's so convenient, isn't it? How long does this stuff take to work?
Oh, not long. A minute or so. Now, if you like to move your feet over, just caught on the edge of the divan.
Oh, do. Make yourself at home.
How are you feeling?
Oh, pleasant. Very pleasant indeed. It's nice. Yeah, I feel as though I've had half a dozen gins. The room's beginning to spin a bit.
No. Lie back and relax.
Beautiful. Wicked.
What is it, Ralph? What are you thinking about?
That girl. Peggy. The one I killed.
Did you kill her, Ralph?
Oh, God, why doesn't anyone believe that? Of course. I killed her. We were sitting there, in the car. The windows were all misted up. I had my arm around her. And suddenly she looked older. I felt a kind of resentment stirring in me, and I couldn't remember what I was doing there, but it was as though I'd arranged it all. My head was aching. I felt I couldn't go on the way things were, and I had to be rid of her.
Who?
The girl. Then I got my hands around her throat and held them there, tight. I'd show her. Yes, I'd show her. Go on. Struggle, you bitch! Struggle! Hey, for all the good it'll do you. Oh, the pleasure of it. If only you knew. And then her face began to turn blue, and her eyes went all bloodshot, and she stopped struggling, and there was some blood trickling down her lip onto my hand. I wiped it on her coat.
No, this simply didn't happen, did it, Ralph?
It did. Was it a thing I imagined? That drive to the cliff. I was so afraid. I could hardly grip the wheel. But she was lighter than I thought, and she seemed to float through the air as I dropped her over the edge. Then I drove back here. My father was abroad having a grand time with his beloved Ruth. And I found some whiskey and drank the lot and fell asleep. Right here. Next day, I had a terrible shock. Found the bag.
Whose bag?
The girl's. In the car. Had a broad stitching round the edge and a long shoulder strap. And I knew it was hers when I saw the initial. It was a large gilt M.
M?
Mm-hmm. I hid it in the cubbyhole, and then later I threw it in the marsh. And all this time, and I can still hear her voice and smell her perfume. And Won't I ever be rid of her? Doctor, you must help me. No, please help me. I can't suffer it anymore.
No. All right, old chap. Now, just take it easy. I'll give you some tablets. Just hang on. I'll get you a little water. Now, take these. They'll make you feel a lot better.
Thanks.
That's the way. Now, I'll leave you a couple more. I shall take them about 9:30. Now, just lie back and try and sleep.
Well, has he had the injection, Doctor?
Yes.
How is he?
Fair. Could we go into your study?
Yes, of course. Come along this way. Well, what happened?
The same story, only this time more detailed. You know, it's odd. Most people with delusions are inclined to deviate, embellish, distort. Yet
Well, you surely can't believe there's any truth in his story.
Sometimes it's difficult to separate what's true from fantasy. But either way, I think I understand his motive.
You do?
Yes. This murder he describes indicates hatred against someone or some situation. In this case, I believe that someone is your wife.
Ruth.
Well, there's nothing novel in that. The substitution of one person for another often happens in a criminal act.
But Ruth, what has she ever done to him?
Nothing deliberately. But in his mind, she may have deprived him of your love and companionship.
Can't be serious. Ralph doesn't care a damn about me.
A child hasn't been born who doesn't care about his mother or father. At the time of your marriage, the boy felt rejected.
Oh, this is just psychiatric jargon.
You think so, do you? Tell me, how much time have you given the boy in the past 10 years?
Well, I'm not exactly idle. My business doesn't run itself, you know.
Yes, but you've time for parties, theatres, holidays.
Yes, so do thousands of other couples. They don't all drag their kids around with them. Why should he suddenly go off the rails?
Why are some people accident-prone and others not? You can't generalize. The boy needed you. Emotionally, you gave him nothing. His hostility had to have an outlet. If you saw Ralph's statement, you'll notice the similarity between the girl he described and your wife.
But murder? For heaven's sake.
It may sound absurd, but the seeds of violence can't grow in a vacuum. They need a nourishing soil. It's usually found in the family. The boy craved for emotional security. You didn't give him that.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't understand a word you're talking about. I've given the boy a good home, and Ruth's done everything to fill his mother's place. But he hasn't made the slightest effort. You ask me, he started this cock and bull story to cause trouble. To create a rift. Why else should he go to the police?
The pressure of guilt, perhaps?
Pressure of guilt, my foot. I don't believe a word of it.
Under pentothal, he described the girl's bag in detail.
But there is no bag. The police couldn't find it.
Ralph mentioned the initial M.
M?
He said it was in gilt lettering.
So?
Well, doesn't that strike you as odd?
Yes, it does, considering he told us the girl's name was Peggy.
Exactly. Peggy is a diminutive of Margaret.
Margaret?
Yeah. Now, if he was lying, why embroider it in such detail? In fact, why mention the initial at all?
He has a more colourful imagination than you give him credit for.
Perhaps.
Look, Doctor, the boy has his failings, but to my knowledge he's never lifted a finger to harm anyone. Can you honestly believe he'd kill a helpless young girl in cold blood?
I don't know, Mr. Ellinger. I wasn't there. But we all have primitive impulses that constantly seek relief. And no one is incapable of murder, believe me.
But there's no evidence, nothing. What he said under pentothal would hardly be admissible. There's no case to answer.
I agree, but whatever you or I believe, try and understand that he's burdened with an insufferable guilt. And this can be more painful than an open wound, and far worse than anything the law can inflict.
If only he'd go away for a while. Take a rest, abroad. Wouldn't that help?
Travel alone?
Well, he's not a child, is he?
No, of course not. Well, perhaps it might be an idea for him to get away from here for a while.
From me, you mean, don't you?
It's his source of conflict. There's little point in aggravating it. Going abroad might be one solution, I suppose.
Well, will you talk to him? He might listen to you.
I'll try. I'll call by again in the morning.
Thank you. Goodbye, Doctor.
Ellinger.
Hello?
Dr. Rooney?
Yes?
I'm sorry to bother you so late, Doctor. It's Ralph Ellinger here.
Oh, yes, Ralph. What's the trouble?
Yes, I've just woken up. Now, I don't know whether it was the drug, the tablets, or what, but I've just remembered something else, something important.
Yes, what is it?
Well, the morning after it happened, I gave a friend of mine a lift. You remember the girl my father spoke about, Carol Sanford.
Yes, go on.
Well, I didn't find the bag in the car till the afternoon. It dropped between the seat and the door. So, she must have seen it as she climbed into the car, I'm sure of it.
Now, I think you'll agree it's a little late to start another investigation. Let's talk about it in the morning.
No, but Doctor, this is important.
It'll keep. Now, have you taken the other tablets I gave you?
No, not yet.
Well, take them right away, and I'll see you first thing in the morning. Good night.
Yeah, but 174. 174.
Wintersley 174.
Carol.
Who's that?
It's Ralph Ellinger.
Oh, how are you?
Yes, fine. Look, I want to talk to you. It's very important.
Well, what is it?
No, not over the phone. Could you possibly meet me somewhere?
What, tonight? But I'm in bed.
But I must see you right away.
I'm sorry, Ralph. It's terribly late and I've a busy day ahead of me.
Carol, I must speak to
Then
you.
sometime tomorrow, perhaps. Good night.
No, Carol.
Who's that? Ralph!
Shh. Keep your voice down.
Ralph, what are you doing here?
I'm sorry, but I had to see you.
Are you out of your mind? My father's room's across the hall.
Please, Carol, this won't take long, but I must talk to you.
Pass me my housecoat, quickly.
Listen, I only want to...
Quiet a minute.
What's wrong?
I thought I heard someone in the hallway. It's all right. Now, what do you want?
Well, it's difficult. Look, Carol, I need your help.
Couldn't it wait till tomorrow?
No, please. You probably won't believe what I'm going to tell you, but last year when I came down for the summer vac, I killed a girl.
You killed a girl?
Strangled, murdered, call it what you like. Then I threw her body into the sea, and there's no trace of her, nothing.
Oh, Ralph, you are ill, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Look, why don't you sit down and rest for a moment? I'll telephone your father.
No.
Oh. Well, can I get you anything? A drink, perhaps?
Will you stop treating me like a sick creature or something? What I told you is the truth. Well, can't I make anyone understand? My father calls in a psychiatrist. Questions, but no one listens. Even the police.
Police?
Yes, I made a full confession. But what I need is evidence. A single witness might make all the difference.
But I can't help you, Ralph.
You can. You can if only you'll think back. I know you'll remember.
Remember what?
I gave you a lift the morning after it happened. Now, the girl's bag was in the car, lodged between the seat and the door. You must have seen it as you climbed in.
I don't remember.
No. It was a light plastic bag with heavy stitching and a strap.
No, I don't remember any bag.
Carol, think carefully, please.
No, if I'd seen a bag, I'm sure I'd have remembered it.
There was an initial on the bag, too, the letter M.
I'm sorry, Ralph.
But you're not trying.
Ralph, you're hurting my arm.
Think, for God's sake, think.
Please leave go of me. Thank you.
Carol, don't you understand? You're my last chance. If you don't help me, there's nothing I can do.
But I didn't see the bag. Now, Ralph, please go.
No.
You're ill, Ralph. You need help, don't you see that? You didn't kill that girl. I know you. You couldn't hurt anyone.
Couldn't I?
No, I don't believe you could.
So I imagined it all. It's all in my mind, eh?
You're not a murderer, Ralph. You couldn't be.
No. We'll see. We'll see.
Ralph, what are you doing? Keep away from me. Ralph, please.
Go. I can't do it. Oh, forgive me.
It's all right, Ralph.
Oh.
Just lie down. There.
I'm coming.
Mr. Ellinger's expecting me.
Oh, yes, sir. Come on in, won't you?
Ah, Inspector Hadley. In here, if you would.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I believe you've met my wife.
Oh, yes, sir. Good morning, Mrs. Ellinger.
It's hardly that, is it?
No, I suppose not. But that boy's lucky. I saw Mr. Sandford again this morning. He could prosecute for trespass and the girl for assault, but they'd rather not.
Why have you come, then?
Oh, forgetting the Sandfords for a moment. In view of all that's happened, I'm of two minds whether or not to apply to have him remanded for a medical report.
Is that necessary? Haven't we had enough trouble already? Look, Dr. Rooney's with him now. He's suggested that he gets away from here for a while.
Oh, he has he? Well, I don't know whether I would advise that, sir.
But everything's arranged. He's packed. The train leaves in 15 minutes, and I've got his plane tickets.
Well, I don't want to hold him up, but I think I ought to have a word with Dr. Rooney first.
Oh, you'll be down in a minute. Won't you take a seat?
Thank you.
Look, I'm sure you'll agree. A few months in the sun, and Ralph will be as right as rain.
All packed, Ralph?
Very nearly, Doctor.
What have you got there?
Gin. You disapprove?
I doubt if my saying yes will stop you.
You know, I have a feeling I shan't see this room again.
Now, that's nonsense, and you know it.
Is it? Tell me, Dr. Rooney, what conclusion did you reach, finally?
Conclusion?
Don't hedge.
The criterion of murder is malice of forethought. I can't believe that you would ever kill anyone deliberately in cold blood.
But did I kill the girl, or didn't I?
Now listen to me, Ralph. From when we're so high, we all have dreams and memories that alarm and torment us.
I'm not a child anymore. This memory is real.
The dividing line between reality and fantasy is a very thin one.
Round and round and round. Don't you ever say yes or no to a question?
When I know the answer.
You're stumped. After all those tests and cosy chats we had, that doesn't say much for your noble profession, does it? I'm sorry. At least you listened. Oh, God, if they'd only charged me. It would have been so much easier. It's worse to punish yourself, isn't it? There's just no limit to one's own cruelty. I'm already building a dungeon inside myself.
In time, you'll come to terms with it, Ralph.
Oh, you're wrong, Doctor. I never shall.
I must have a word with your father. I'll see you before you go.
Dr. Rooney, this is Inspector Hadley.
How do you do, sir?
Hello.
I said you thought it would be all right for Ralph to leave.
Is that correct, sir? Is he quite normal?
What's normal?
Well, you know what I mean, sir. I'd hate a repeat of last night's little episode.
I don't think that's very likely, do you, Doctor?
Well, sir, what's your verdict?
I don't think you've grounds to confine the boy, but I am of the opinion it would be to his advantage to leave here.
I see. Very well, Mr. Ellinger. He can go.
Thank you, Inspector. I'm very grateful for all you've done. I don't think I need to say more.
Well, that's all right, sir. I've a lad of my own. These things can happen in any family. But that boy's lucky he has a father like you.
Oh, Ralph, come on down.
Well, goodbye, sir, and goodbye, Mrs. Ellinger.
Goodbye, Inspector.
All ready, are we, Ralph?
More or less.
Well, now, don't go off without your ticket, will you?
Oh, no.
I think this should see you through for a couple of months.
What?
Well, go on, take it. Just wire me if you need any more. Now, I'll get the car round.
Oh, no, don't bother. I can drive myself to the
Oh,
station.
no bother, I insist.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Goodbye, Ralph. You know where you can reach me, if you need to.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Ralph. Take care of yourself.
Goodbye.
You know, Ralph, this is really an ideal time of year for a holiday. I wish I could leave the business and join you, believe me. Ah, well, you know how things are.
Yeah, of course.
Still, you have a good time. Which reminds me, there's a little place about 10 miles south of Dijon called Nuit Saint-Georges. It's a marvellous hotel there. You listening to me, Ralph?
What? Oh, yes.
What are you looking at? Oh, those kids on the marshland. You'd think their parents would know better than let them play there. Still, as I was saying, this wonderful little hotel. Your mother and I stayed there when we were first married. I haven't been back there since, but they're bound to remember me. Why don't you go down there? Food's excellent, and I promise you'll be comfortable.
Pete, that policeman said we're not to play here.
Why? We're not doing any harm?
No, come on. We better go back and clean the yard.
Here, wait a minute. There's something down there in the water.
Where?
There, look.
Oh, it's only an old bag. Oh, look careful. It's all covered in mud.
There's a gold letter on it. M.
Where? That's not gold.
Oh, look, you've made me drop it. It sunk right to the bottom.
So what? Who cares about it anyway? It's only an old bag. Come on, let's go. I'll beat you back to the farm.
In Torment, by Philip Levine, the part of Ralph Ellinger was played by Barry Foster and Dr. Rooney by Derek Bond. Frank Ellinger by Rolf Lefevre, Ruth Ellinger by Barbara Bolton, Inspector Hadley, Philip Morant, Sergeant Lumsden and Mr. Preedy, Peter Claughton, Flora, Priscilla Benson, Publican, Arthur Gomez, Mr. Ryder and Mr. Carstairs, Will Layton, Mr. Denton, Godfrey Kenton, Carol Soundford, Dorrit Wells, Constable Barclay, Michael Spice, Brenda, Patricia Bendall, Daphne, Patricia Cree, David, Terry Raven, and Pete, Jeremy Ranchev. The recorded production was by Robin Midgley.
When a number of distinguished members of government committees are found dead in suspicious circumstances, it falls to DCI Kate Duncan, played by Hayden Gwynn, to discover what, if any, is the connecting factor.
Morning. Or is it still night? Your coffee?
Oh, phew, you got my text.
Yeah, but latte wasn't a word they recognised, so I went for white. Still, amazing to find anywhere around here at 4:45 in the morning. It's getting like New York.
What? Oh, 24-hour culture. Otherwise, Buckinghamshire's still arguably some way behind.
You willingly gave yourself up to death.
Is this your first exhumation, Detective Sergeant?
Yes.
It's a rite of passage for a copper. Like your first autopsy. Though less gory, everything happens behind screens. All we'll see is the coffin being carried away in a bigger box.
Are they always this early?
Yes, first light, by law. Maybe to reduce the risk of being watched. Some kind of pagan hangover, I suppose. Although Dame Imelda is getting prayers.
As the mortal remains of Imelda are taken to another place of rest, we put our trust in you. May those who bear responsibility in this process show care and compassion.
I was glad Andy had asked to be cremated.
Wisdom and skill.
It's irrational, I know, but I found it easier to think of him as dust than down there.
Sure.
Lorenzo, you don't have to feel uncomfortable when I mention my dead husband.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I think it's the people around me who need the bereavement counsellors, not me. Of course, another advantage of having Andy burned is that nobody will ever be able to find out if I killed him.
Do you really think there's a chance this old bird was murdered?
Well, they don't do exhumations unless they have to. Opening graves messes with the paperwork and people's heads. I think our crazed overlords are just being cautious. The lady in that grave had good connections, and you know what A.C. Briggs is like.
DCI Duncan.
Assistant Commissioner.
I think there's another little puzzle coming your way. Why that face, Kate?
Well, I've still got leaves stacked up from the previous two. We're a small squad, sir.
Well, you're running a sensitive cases squad in times when the force is walking on Let's say the only way out of Eggshell Alley is Thin Ice Lane.
Unless you get stuck in Metaphor Muse.
What?
Who are we trying not to upset now?
Do you recognise the name Dame Imelda Sharp?
I'm getting a flashback to episodes of Question Time. She'd be the token woman who wasn't a politician.
She'd been a teacher, went into the Ministry of Education side. After that, committees, reports, inquiries. She was on the Police Complaints Commission for a long time.
And what had she done, or had done to her?
Dame Imelda died just before Christmas. 82, and no great surprise to the GP or the family. But recently we received suggestions that there may have been suspicious circumstances.
What kind of suggestions?
Letters, anonymous. These are copies.
Are there questions to be answered about the death of Dame Imelda Sharp? Are you certain Dame Imelda Sharp died from congestive heart failure? That's an interesting level of detail. Look at this one. Was Dame Imelda a victim of NHS drug rationing? Again, very medically specific.
Yes, if it's mischief, it's informed mischief.
But the reason we're taking this so seriously, I assume, is that she had enough police connections for the Met to send you to the funeral.
That isn't how it works.
No. And isn't it a Sharp who writes that column that has the 6th floor reaching for the deodorant every Thursday morning?
Dame Imelda's daughter is a journalist, yes.
Ah.
No, not ah. Contrary to your cynicism, Hermione Sharp doesn't think her mother was bumped off. She's vehemently against an exhumation.
Ah. Which, as a cynic, makes me interested.
Yes, I thought you'd want to see her.
I thought we'd meet here rather than the office, Detective Chief Inspector. Once the word goes round the PA circuit that the bill is in, journos have a tendency to be paranoid.
Do they? Long time since I've been called the bill.
Oh, yes. Excuse my newspeak. Papers like ours are written in this peculiar slang. Short words fit better in headlines, and they give a bit of variation. You can't have the words Prime Minister and mistake in every sentence. Are you sure you won't have one of their cakes? We always have a box sent in on office birthdays.
I won't. I've read your views on women who let themselves go.
You got told, as my daughters say. You can probably see that I'm 20 pounds heavier than my byline picture. In that difficult interlude between beauty and Botox, God bless Photoshop. I don't suppose you read our rag?
I see it.
I see.
Did you and your mother get on well?
Well, we wouldn't have troubled the fire brigade. She was a good sort, I suppose. By which I mean she did a sort of good. All those committees and fundraisers and inquiries. A lady of the letterheads. They'll struggle to find people to do it all in the future. I can't imagine my generation playing Solomon for a train ticket and a plate of stale biscuits.
Were you very disappointed that your mother didn't leave you any money?
Blimey, you have been reading up on me. No, Mummy thought I made enough myself.
But you had been a beneficiary for most of your life. Dame Imelda made a new will a year before her death, removing you. Did you know that?
I suspected it.
Why do you think she did that?
Mummy was pleased that I'd done well, but I think she really wanted me to do good. Or at least wrote for The Guardian rather than this rag.
I think you were contacted about some letters we received.
Yeah.
I have copies here.
Look, I read them. I was mildly surprised that someone knew or had bothered to find out the cause of death, but no idea what they meant by her being... yes, here it is. A victim of NHS drug rationing?
My understanding is that you didn't take the letters very seriously.
Well, no, I'm pretty sure it's someone trying to get at me.
At you?
Yes. The thing is, you may also have noticed that it's not a very kind profession. To be honest, I even wondered if this was the revenge of a copper I'd pissed off.
So you're suggesting that someone might be trying to set you up?
Well, that's my worry, yes. Sending me a stick to see if I get hold of the wrong end. Happens to columnists all the time, especially since the internet.
Isn't that a little paranoid?
Look, if you saw my inbox in the morning after a column, I was referred to the Press Complaints Commission 14 times last year, never successfully, as it happens.
Well, if the Police Complaints Commission consisted only of senior coppers, I guess we'd be in the clear as well. This may seem an odd question, but do you happen to have kept a lock of your mother's hair?
Hardly. We didn't have that kind of relationship. Why would you want it?
Depending on the date of the sample, it can be used for toxicology tests. Hair absorbs toxins and they stay there.
Oh, yes. So, in the absence of a lock?
If it came to it, I'm afraid it would be exhumation.
You know, I really don't want that.
I'm afraid it wouldn't be up to you, Miss Sharp. The decision is with the Home Office. It will depend entirely on the weight of evidence.
Amen.
Just 4 months ago at the funeral, they'll have prayed for her resurrection. But they didn't mean as quickly or like this. Ah, here she comes.
Are there usually no family?
Often. Would you want to get up in the middle of the night to see your mother dug up? And in this case, the daughter was, well, dead set against the whole thing.
Which makes her prime suspect.
But too early, Rob. The usual rules when investigating a death. Look into the life.
Thank you. We move on to our next question, which comes from Mrs. Fiona Irving.
My husband has been diagnosed with a terminal illness. His specialist has identified a drug which my husband's specialist believes would significantly increase both length and quality of life. But the local NHS refuses to fund the drug. However, if we lived in one of 2 neighbouring counties, the treatment would be paid for. Can this be just or fair?
All right, let's hear first from Dame Imelda Sharp.
First of all, Mrs. Irving, I think everyone will sympathise with you. Many, including myself, may also sadly empathise. But the fact is...
OK, let's stop it there. That's interesting.
What is?
The fact that she makes such a deliberate distinction between sympathy and empathy.
Isn't she just the type to use 2 words where one would do? They're the same thing.
No, they're not. As one of my lecturers once said, if Mick Jagger had called the album Empathy for the Devil, we'd have had even more respect for him. What she's saying is that she has personal experience of being denied, or knowing someone who was denied drugs.
Or maybe she doesn't know what the words really mean.
She seems the kind of woman who would. DCI Duncan? Right. Yes, OK. Well, thank you for being so quick. The preliminary toxicology results on Dame Imelda are in. Her body contained significant levels of Viscerant, an experimental cancer drug.
But wasn't it her heart that did for her? We've got the death certificate here somewhere.
Yes. We need to talk to her GP.
Dr. Creedy.
Dr. Creedy, I'm DCI Duncan. I'm investigating the potentially suspicious death of one of your patients, Dame Imelda Sharp.
Yes, indeed.
I'd like to ask you a few questions. Dr. Creedy, were you at any point treating the patient for cancer?
Well, in common with many, even most of her generation, she had experienced basal cell skin cancers, which were removed, but she had not presented with any other carcinogenic condition.
So you hadn't at any point prescribed to her the drug Viscerant?
No. An anti-cancer of that kind would, of course, commonly be prescribed by a hospital consultant rather than a GP, but that distinction is irrelevant in this case.
Why is that?
Because there is nothing to suggest that it was ever indicated for Dame Imelda.
Could she have been seeing another doctor?
That's always possible, of course. Some patients scuttle between public and private medicine.
Doctor, how could you explain the presence of Viscerant in the patient's body at the time of her death?
Is that what the PM shows?
I need you to answer that question.
Well, I could only assume a mistake had been...
At your surgery?
In the autopsy.
Doctor, I'm going to have to come and see you.
So, Gov, another doctor death?
Maybe. But it's also possible that someone convinced her she had cancer or that somebody mixed up the drugs. Frankly, if she hadn't been on the Police Complaints Commission, she'd have stayed buried with all the other mistakes doctors make. Do you have the CDs? I want to get more sense of her.
All right, let's hear first from Dame Imelda Sharp.
First of all, Mrs. Irving, I think everyone will sympathise with you. Many, including myself, may also sadly empathize. But the fact is that the exercise of public policy involves tough decisions. The NHS is not a bottomless pit, and so hard choices have to be made about the value of particular treatments, which is why we pay people to make those unenviable decisions.
Perhaps we could try paying them a bit less.
Max Chambers of the Daily News.
I don't want to personalise this at all, but you, Dame Imelda, have been a public servant in a variety of positions, and I am sure you have been very well rewarded for it. Maybe if your pensions were a little smaller, there will be more money available for cancer drugs.
I think it's a little ungallant, Max, to drag into this my own emoluments, which were not by any standards vast. And I was only involved in the smallest possible way in the creation of public policy. These are, as I say, tough decisions. They're being asked to exercise the very power of life and death.
State your names and business, please.
DCI Duncan and DS Lorenzo, as arranged.
Ah, yes, of course.
Good evening, Doctor. Looks as if you've had a visit from the local force's personal security advisor.
My office is right at the end of this corridor. Not ideal, given that half our customers can't walk, but we're a big practice.
Are you often here late on your own, Doctor?
What? Oh, you think that's when I falsify the records and death certificates with no one around?
Oh, not at all. We're
No, that's a line you have to pursue. I understand that. After shipment, we're lucky every patient we certify isn't dug up.
Why do you keep these hours, though? Are you short-staffed?
Not really. We're one down in the dispensary at the moment, but that's standard stuff in any business. The late nights are partly that, more and more paperwork. Patients tell me it's the same in your line of work.
Snap.
And ever more levels of meddling.
That sounds familiar.
10 years ago, the patient coughed, I listened, I prescribed. Or not. These days, there'll be 7 emails from the PCT telling me which linctus I'm allowed to give them.
PCT is primary...
Primary Care Trust. The way I explain it is that it's as if GPs are MPs and the PCT is the government. They set policy, we get the whinging constituents. Here we are. Pull that other chair across. We only use 2 for mum and child consultations, or infertile couples. So, Dame Imelda Sharp. Well, as this is a potential murder investigation, I have authority, as it happens from the very PCT, their ears must be burning, to drop patient confidentiality.
Were you surprised when she died?
With her conditions, she wasn't ever going to blow out 90 candles, but conversely, I've had other patients with an identical profile who didn't make 80. She was more or less in the middle of the predicted outcomes.
In the simplest terms, what killed her?
She had left-sided heart failure, which can take years to play out, and did. What happens is that the heart pumps less and less efficiently so that fluid builds up in the lungs. As is often the case, she first presented with dyspnea and edema.
What?
Breathlessness and swollen ankles. The standard treatment, which, as her records show, she received is diuretics to disperse the liquid and inhibitors to regulate the heart rate. I had her on furosemide, digoxin and benazepril. Fairly standard combinations. It's all about trying to keep the pump going.
So if a patient in her condition was suddenly given another drug, one she wasn't supposed to be on...
Literally a shock to the system. Especially as it happens with an anti-cancer. They tend to be at the sledgehammer end of the medicine cabinet. Cardiovascular strength is often an issue in prescribing them.
Doctor, what was your reaction when the autopsy report showed an overdose of...
Viscerant. We had never been treating the patient for bowel cancer, so why should she be on that treatment?
Could she accidentally have been given the wrong drug from the dispensary?
Look, I can't say it's never happened, but the point is that she couldn't have been given Viscerant from this surgery because it wouldn't have been in stock. Our PCT hasn't approved it for use.
Ah.
That's the postcode lottery people go on about in phone-ins.
In effect, yes. There are 2 layers of rationing. You've heard of NICE?
Well, I've read the National Institute...
Of Clinical Excellence. NICE decides which drugs can be used in this country, you see. And if they don't like it, you either buy or fly. But even if NICE does like it, a local PCT may decide it doesn't like the price. So, yeah, 2 patients, 2 counties, same tumour. One gets the funeral, one gets the birthday party. And they call it a national health service.
Could Dame Imelda have got the cancer drug on the internet or somewhere else?
Well, she could have. It's the curse of modern medicine. Half my patients diagnose themselves on one site and choose the cure from another. If I'm lucky, I'm a second opinion. But why would she? As I keep saying, nothing in her story suggested that illness.
OK, we can leave you to your emails. But we will have to speak to the dispensary staff, I'm afraid.
Well, you can talk to who's around, but not until tomorrow.
Sure. Good morning.
Hello. I'll need the prescription you're collecting.
No. We're DCI Duncan and DS Lorenzo.
Ah, yes. I'm about to pull the shutters down for lunch anyway. Come round.
For the record, you are Sue Wells and your dispensary manager.
But acting. Dee Mortimer's usually in charge, but she's away.
Oh, dear. I hope she isn't...
Oh, don't. Every patient thinks they're the first with that. No, she's taken a career break. It's a new thing they brought in.
Yes, we have it too. Look, what possibility would there be of somebody picking up the wrong drugs?
We've never had it happen in my time.
But theoretically, it could.
Well, have you ever got an innocent person locked up?
No. No, not that I know.
Well, that's me in killing patients, then. Now, the name and number on the box is checked against the name and number on the form.
Tell me, can you think of any innocent way that a patient could end up taking the wrong drugs?
Oh, yes.
But you just said it couldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen here, I said, but, well, yes. It's obvious. In a hospital or a care home, lots of pills on a trolley, even an elderly couple in their own house, both on different medication.
Oh, God. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Rob. I feel a complete wally. I never thought to ask the daughter or the doctor if she'd spent time in hospital. Or even if she'd been on holiday with another Doris and they accidentally swapped bottles.
The team's on it. They'll call me.
The time we've wasted if this turns out to have been accidental contamination.
I don't know, though. Then why didn't Dr. Creedy offer that as a defence when he must have talked it over with the pill lady? And if it is just a mix-up, why the letters in the first place?
That's quick. If it's to say Dame Imelda died in a home, we could be in our homes by lunchtime.
DS Lorenzo? Really? When? Read it to me. Crikey. I'll tell her.
So, tell me, she'd been on a 1,000-cabin cruise ship just before she died. The case is off.
Oh, no. The case is on. We've just been contacted by the PCT. The autopsy on another of Creedy's patients has shown fatal levels of a drug for a condition she didn't have.
Let's get back there. Looks as if our Dr. Creedy may be the next Harold Shipman.
The Duncans to room 4 for Dr. Creedy, please.
Apologies, Detective Sergeant, for marrying you off to your boss.
No worries.
I thought it easier to pass you off as a couple coming for a consultation. Patients are often paranoid enough in waiting rooms.
Well, we wouldn't want your customers any more worried.
Ouch.
Lady Patricia Carey.
Yes.
Did her death surprise you?
You asked me this yesterday about Dame Imelda. At 81, Lady Patricia was within the shaded part of the graph, as it were. She was not terminally ill, but at some point there would be a terminus.
The reason that there was an autopsy in her case was that she hadn't seen a doctor for...
In the fortnight before she died. Yes, that was one of the precautions introduced after the wretched shipman.
Lady Patricia died suddenly?
Yes. Her son, who was visiting her, found her in bed.
In our job, as in yours, we're not supposed to jump to conclusions, but we do. What was your best guess as to what had happened?
There had been signs of vascular disease, clogged arteries to civilians, which we were beginning to treat. I took that as the villain.
But you've seen the autopsy report?
I have.
And what was your reaction?
Completely mystified and alarmed at the implications.
Had Lady Patricia Carey been prescribed Vesicant?
Not with my knowledge. And I would have been surprised if she had received it in any event, as there was no indication of the condition.
And what were you treating her for?
She was in pretty reasonable general health for someone of 81. Her main problem was chronic rheumatoid arthritis with a complication of cervical myelopathy.
I'm afraid I don't speak Holby City.
Ah. The latter is a compression of the spine. Her movement was becoming quite restricted. In association with her orthopaedic consultant at the hospital, we'd settled on a regime of DMARDs.
DMARDs?
I'm sorry. Disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, which were the last before one big thing for treating RA. In fact, both the consultant and I had been keen to try her on TNF inhibitors. These are a new line which actually arrest the inflammation process. But unfortunately, they are red triangled.
Red triangled?
Yes. It's a system commonly used by primary care trusts now. Suppose, Detective Chief Inspector, that you present to me with migraine.
That's uncanny. How did you know?
Oh, there was something somewhat photophobic in your squinting at the light. But look, this is what I do. I type migraine into this page here. And this site lists the available licensed drugs. A green triangle means that they're approved for use by my PCT. A red triangle means they're not.
And is that because they're dangerous?
No. Well, sometimes. It can mean that they haven't been licensed by the National Institute for...
Yes, nice. We've got the hang of that one.
Or that clinical trials have not been completed. But no, to be honest, green usually means that they're cheap.
Really?
I'm afraid so. One of the things that surprised me about the presence of Vesicant is that, in common with the drug that you asked me about yesterday...
Viscerant?
Yes. Both of them are red triangled here.
Right. So we've got quite a problem here, haven't we, Dr. Creedy? Dame Imelda Sharp seems to have died from a drug you hadn't prescribed her for a cancer she hadn't got. Now the same thing seems to have happened to Lady Patricia Carey. Why is it that elderly title ladies in your practice are being killed by pills they aren't taking?
Look, I find it inexplicable as well.
You understand that we'll need to speak to the dispensary manager again?
The acting dispensary manager. Yes.
Yes, the system records every prescription signed out to a patient and the name of the person who collected it.
Could you show us on the computer the most recent records for Lady Patricia Carey?
Yeah, here it is. Methotrexate, azathioprine, cyclophosphamide, ketoprofen.
And when was the last time she got them?
There it is.
That's about a month before she died.
Does it say who picked them up?
Well, it will. We just have to... Oliver Carey. Well, that's her son. He's a doctor, actually.
Really? Round here?
No, Oxford Way.
And can you do Dame Imelda Sharp for us?
Yep. Here. Furosemide, digoxin, benazepril, 1712.
Again, about a month.
And who collected those?
Hermione Sharp, the daughter.
When we were here the other day, you told us that when a patient dies, you encourage unused drugs to be returned.
Uh-huh.
Are there records of that?
Do you want to check those two? Sharp, Imelda, yes. Several packets were brought back about 10 days after her death.
And do those drugs get given to other patients?
Oh, no, not now. They used to. But there was a new regulation a few years ago. They either have to be burned, or apparently, some go to the developing world.
And the fact that you can't reallocate them, that's because of fear of contamination?
Well, I suppose so. Or sued. Most of it's about not being sued now. Patricia Carey. No, nothing returned.
So if there was anything left, they'd be at the house?
I imagine.
Right. And if, say, you're dispensing a prescription, would you also be the person who took the drugs off the shelves, got them ready?
Not necessarily. The people we know are coming in for renewals. We'll bag up the prescriptions first thing, but that might be me or Dee, whoever.
I think you told us Dee Mortimer is on a career break.
Oh, that's right.
Do you happen to know if she's at home?
She went travelling, I think. A cruise and then staying with people. That's what I'd probably do if I were a widow like her.
Do you have her number on your phone? Workmates often do these days.
Oh, yeah.
I'll need it, please.
Here, I'll write it down.
And we'll also need Lady Patricia's home address. DCI Duncan, DS Lorenzo. We're investigating the death of Lady Patricia Carey.
Ah, yes, I'm Ollie, her son.
Dr. Carey?
Strictly, yes, but I shrug it off between consultations. Come in.
Thank you. We gambled that there might be someone at the house.
Yes, I was staying here while we made the funeral arrangements, which, of course, were delayed by the PM. We're probably best in here.
Were you happy with the treatment Lady Patricia received?
Well, this is complicated. There's a certain egotism in all professions. But the regime Tom Creedy and the consultant came up with was pretty much what I'd have done. Of course, in Mother's case, there was a further complication, as she kept a beady eye on what she was being given herself. To paraphrase the late Princess of Wales, there were 3 doctors in this consultation.
Lady Patricia was a doctor?
Oh, yes. Retired, but she used to run the practice Creedy has now. I don't think a lot of people around here even realised. She used to grouch that they took her as some kind of aristo who'd never worked for a living. I don't know what it's like when chief constables are burgled, but it's a bugger being a doctor's doctor. Mummy sometimes seemed deeply suspicious of poor Tom Creedy.
Really?
Yes, to the extent that I began to wonder if it was paranoia as a symptom of dementia. A few days before she died, she claimed that he'd turned up on her doorstep unannounced.
Right.
He said she'd requested a home visit. She insisted she hadn't. She sent him on his way.
OK. And what was your reaction as a doctor, rather than a son, to the autopsy results?
I felt it was probably a misunderstanding at the lab. You see, 2 of the drugs Mother was given for RA actually are used in certain circumstances to treat cancers. But when the substance turned out to be cetanamine...
Cetanamine?
That's the generic term. The brand is Vesican. There was clearly no way that was indicated in her case, and I don't know if you know, but it's not actually available in this area.
And at the time of your mother's death, there were presumably incomplete prescriptions.
Oh, yes, I've got them in my bag over there. There you go.
If I were a doctor, when I heard the autopsy results, I'd have checked the packets to see if...
Yes.
Go on.
The furosemide didn't look like the kind I prescribe. I was going to check them at work.
We'll do that. You bag them as evidence, Rob.
Of course, if someone has somehow given her a rationed drug, accidentally or deliberately, it's horribly ironic.
Why ironic?
Oh, one of the things Mother did in her retirement was to sit on these drug licensing committees. I used to say that what she did after she stopped working made it hell for me at work. You can imagine what it's like. A patient hears about some super drug on the radio, and it's our job to tell them that NICE or the PCT won't let them have it.
Gov.
Yes, we're almost done here. Dr. Carey, you wouldn't happen to know which drug decisions your mother was specifically involved in?
Oh, no. She was always terrifically secretive about that, almost as strict as patient confidentiality.
Tom Creedy.
Dr. Creedy, it's DCI Duncan.
Ah, yes. Hello.
Is it true that shortly before she died, Lady Patricia Carey refused to be examined by you at her home?
Well, not exactly. There seemed to be an appointments cock-up. A home visit request had been recorded in the diary, and when I arrived, she insisted she hadn't made one.
Oh?
Well, these things can happen. We do have more than one patient with that surname.
OK, thank you, Doctor. Goodbye. Well, he wasn't very convincing on that, Rob.
You're thinking that he turned up to visit her because if she'd been seen by a doctor within a fortnight of her death, there wouldn't be an autopsy.
Yes. Gambling that at her age, she might just let him in. But what's his motive? And how did he get the means, given that those drugs are unobtainable? What are you... Every time I look up, you're shuffling those newspaper printouts.
They're Hermione Sharp's columns. There's a reference somewhere to drug rationing.
Well, yes, that whole series on patients buying drugs off the web. But we've ruled her out as a suspect. Whatever did happen, happened at Westbury Medical Centre.
No, not the series. There's another one somewhere. Something about her mother.
Her mother?
Yes. Here it is. Headline: For God's sake, stop playing God. Hermione Sharp writes.
Really?
So the victims are linked, Gov. They both served on drug committees.
Yes. I should have seen it. A lady of the letterheads, Hermione Sharp called her mother. When was that piece published?
Oh, last July.
Just before Dame Imelda changed her will to exclude her daughter.
But you said we'd excluded Hermione as a suspect.
Yes, but what I'm thinking is that the mother was furious that her daughter had given the game away. And she may have been right, because it was the piece in the paper that alerted someone to what she did in her spare time. Do you see our Duncan? Yes. OK, thank you. That was Path Lab. One of the packets we took away from Patricia Carey's house contained the wrong tablets.
Vesicant. The bladder drug?
We need to get back to Westbury Medical Centre. I think we've stumbled on a new motive for murder. People are being killed for cutting short the lives of others.
Gov, I reckon I've got what happened here.
Go on, Rob.
Creedy told us that the single thing that most annoys him in medicine is having to refuse new drugs to patients.
Well, yes, I'm pretty sure the solution to this lies somewhere in that area.
So Creedy was killing the people who stopped him.
From being the doctor he wants to be. You made my patients die, so now I'll kill you.
Yes.
By giving them false prescriptions, which he would have known were dangerous for people in their conditions?
Yes, exactly.
I very nearly came to that conclusion myself, but there's a problem, isn't there?
Is there? Surely it's the perfect motive.
Yes, right motive, wrong man. Look, if Creedy had somehow managed to get hold of a supply of those drugs from somewhere, why wouldn't he give them to the patients who needed them rather than feeding them to old ladies who didn't?
No. You're right. So who did do it?
No, we're nowhere near a name, but as I think Al Pacino, or possibly the other one, once said in a movie, we need to follow the trail of the drugs.
Hello? No, we're not there yet. What? Which hospital? Okay, we'll go straight there. Cheers.
Who's in hospital? Another of Creedy's patients?
No, one of the consultants there, Mr. Tanner Harding. Found dead this morning, suspected murder.
Okay. The turning was on the roundabout back there. Dr. Creedy, when we spoke the other day, you explained the way in which treatment of a seriously ill patient would be shared between you and a consultant at the General Hospital.
Yes, that's right.
Have you, in such cases, had dealings with Mr. Stuart Tanner Harding?
On and off. You have to realise that as a GP, you want, in the nicest possible way, to have as little to do with consultant oncologists as possible, because only a seriously ill patient would need one.
What's his specialism?
Renal. He has a reputation as the best kidney man in the district.
Renal? Really? And has he treated any of your patients recently?
Look, do you begin to understand what patient confidentiality means? Priests in the confessional have nothing on it.
Dr. Creedy, I'm conducting what is now almost certainly a triple murder investigation.
Triple?
Stuart Tanner Harding was found dead this morning.
Oh, no. How?
I can't go any further than suspicious circumstances. We have our own confidentiality, I'm afraid. Could Mr. Tanner Harding have prescribed either Viscerant or Vesicant for any of your patients?
Well, no, because neither would be indicated for renal treatment. And as I keep saying, to the point of tedium, they are not licensed in this region. So patients would need to pay for or source it themselves.
Well, I'll need a list of all the patients in this practice who've been treated for cancer of the bowel, bladder or kidneys in, well, let's say the last 2 years.
I'll need to clear that with the PCT and the General Medical Council.
Sure, but I need them quickly. We also need to speak to Mrs. Wells in the dispensary again.
Well,
Yes, if a consultant has prescribed a drug, it can be dispensed here by arrangement.
And suppose someone paid for a drug privately, as they can. Could that be distributed from here?
No. We've been asked that, but this is an NHS practice. And so Dr. Creedy's view was that it wouldn't be fair on the patients who don't have access.
Now, just to be absolutely clear about this, neither Viserant nor Vesicant has ever been prescribed to any patient in this practice.
No, we keep telling you they couldn't be.
Something else I'm interested in. Would there be somewhere in the NHS a record of every drug dispensed in the country throughout the year?
Crikey. Well, if there is, I think Newcastle would be your best bet.
Newcastle?
A record of every prescription we dispense is sent to a department there so that the practice can claim the money back. I don't know why it's Newcastle, but that's the way it works. The NHS is rarely simple.
OK, and one other thing. When we spoke the other day, you said Dee Mortimer was a widow?
Yes.
When did she lose her husband?
Coming up to 6 months, I think.
Are you able to tell us what killed him?
I mean, it spread by the end. But he had it in the bowels, I think, originally.
Hello, this is Dee Mortimer. Please leave a message after the bleep.
Mrs. Mortimer, this is DS Rob Lorenzo from Scotland Yard. I need you to call me urgently on one of the numbers I've texted you. I'm not calling with bad news about anyone you know.
Although the answer to this goes back to her getting bad news.
You've worked it out?
I'm heading there, but I need to get some advice from a nice man.
I was utterly convinced that Tanner Harding would be linked with the drugs that killed the posh ladies. But he turns out to have dealt with a completely different part of the body. The 3 deaths don't connect.
Well, they don't if you look for straight lines.
One more year! One more year! One more year! One more year! One more year!
Good afternoon. Henrietta Granville, Director of Public Policy for NICE. I've been fully briefed about why you're here. Sit down.
Thank you. The crowd outside, do you have that all the time?
Oh, yes. One more year, please. It's a national patient pressure group. That phrase is their mantra. And you know what? It gets to the nub of the issue. Actually, there's a certain honesty to it. The demand sounds modest. Most of the relatives we upset aren't looking for a cure or immortality, just a little bit longer. But it's the modesty of the demands that causes the problems. We and the other licensing bodies have to take a hard judgment on QALYs.
QALYs?
Quality-adjusted life years. It's a measure that guides all of our committees in deciding the merit of a certain intervention. A coronary artery bypass graft may extend life by 40 or more years, and so, when divided by the cost of the operation, scores high on QALYs.
Well, hang on, you divide the extra time gained by the price. So you're just looking for the cheapest treatments?
Ah, well, the word just in that sentence is, as it were, unjust. Expense isn't everything, but it's something. One of our jobs is to help to keep the NHS solvent. Look, you read in the paper a story, mother of 4 denied life-saving drug. Well, no, in these cases, not life-saving, life-extending.
Well, wouldn't you want yours extended if it came to it?
Sure, of course. But the question of how long for how much has to come into it. Listen, someone has to be tough to take a hard look at whether it actually alters the odds. Look, they yell 1 more year outside our windows because it sounds better. But in reality, it often comes down to 1 or 2 more months if you're lucky. And these are frequently experimental, expensive treatments, so they score very badly on QALYs.
What counts as a bad score?
These aren't hard and fast, but once you get above £25,000, £30,000 per QALY, we'd question whether it's cost-effective for the NHS. You have to. The new government's talking about funding all available cancer treatments, but once the pill firms hear that, they'll jack the price tags up. And no matter how high the budgets get, they'll never be higher than the hopes of the dying. But remember as well that these are only guidelines. People don't have to do what we say.
They don't?
No. The people shouting outside say we're playing God, but some primary care trusts and doctors don't believe in us. We have no power in Scotland at all, and not much in Northern Ireland. And even in England and Wales, a local PCT may decide a drug we've licensed is too expensive, or find the cash to fund a treatment we don't approve.
I had no idea it was so complicated.
Sure. And deliberately so, some might say.
Why deliberate?
Well, listen to what we walk through to get to work. Would you want that outside your house or ringing you up in the early hours? One of the benefits of the system is that it's pretty hard to work out who actually stopped Auntie Gladys getting those tablets.
Gov.
Yes, Rob, let's just... Look, even so, within the organisation, there must be some kind of a paper trail. You could tell us if Dame Imelda Sharp and Lady Patricia Carey were on certain committees?
Well, that's right. I looked it up for you. You asked about Viscerant? Dame Imelda was a member of the panel that refused a licence to that drug.
Right.
Now, Vesicant, you also asked about, is a different case. That was approved by NICE. Again, Dame Imelda was a panellist.
Approved? And Lady Patricia Carey wasn't connected with any of these decisions?
Well, she hasn't worked for us for some years. Interestingly, though, she does crop up later in papers relating to a High Court appeal on Vesicant, after its use was refused by PCT in Bucks. Lady Patricia served on the local prescriptions committee.
I see. One other thing. Is there any new wonder drug for kidneys that you've had to rule on recently?
Yes. There's something called Cinera, an almost anagram of renase. Latin for the kidneys, I think. We approved it last December. Actually, that's an odd one. Its quali score was nearer £45,000, but it went through.
Right. But again, it would be up to individual health authorities whether to use it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Can't say you've made it clearer, but the confusion has been useful.
I hope so. I often think it's ironic that 2/3 of our work now is euthanasia or drug rationing.
It's coming together, isn't it? The revenge of the relatives.
Yeah, Rob. We started off thinking this was about doctors killing their patients, but it's the other way round. After a lot of cases, I end up thinking that all the motives for murder are still the old ones. Sex, money, jealousy. But we've got a new one here. Death to those who exercise the power of life and death. Kate Duncan? Yes? Thank you. Yes, I'll look at it now. Rob. Rob! Take those headphones off.
Sorry, Gov. I was listening to the tapes of Dame Imelda Sharp on the radio. See how much she gives away about her work on the drugs panels.
The PM and crime scene analysis on Stuart Tanner Harding are in. Does all the marks of a deliberate hit and run.
Have they ID'd the vehicle?
Yes, easily.
Someone who wanted to be caught?
Well, not exactly. Someone who had reason not to worry if they were.
Who is it?
The car's a Renault Espace, registered to a Des Valentine of Rectory Close, Westbury. Creedy's medical centre is in Rectory Lane, so it would be amazing if he's not a patient.
It keeps coming back to Dr. Creedy.
Yes, although he's more of a coincidence than a cause. But before we go to see Mr. Valentine, Creedy is the first urgent conversation we need to have.
Creedy.
Good morning, Doctor.
Oh, it's you.
Yes. I'm interested in the drug Cinera.
Yes?
Is it something you've ever prescribed?
I tried to, but we were unable to agree funding. In this case, the specialist couldn't get it past the financial manager in his unit.
The oncologist, was that Stuart Tanner Harding?
Yes.
And in this case, would you ever have had cause to tell the patient why you were unable to provide the drug?
Oh dear, I don't like the way this is going.
I'm afraid it's a very important question.
I may have told the patient that we simply couldn't have funded Cinera, while the hospital could have, but wouldn't.
Is Mr. Desmond Valentine of Rectory Close, Westbury, a patient of yours?
Yes, I think I'm able to say that he is.
Was he also a patient of Mr. Tanner Harding?
To answer that would potentially breach patient confidentiality.
Come on, I'm investigating 3 murders. I have already told you that I need all your medical records urgently.
And the PCT is deciding whether to give them to you. They'll be in touch.
Ah, finally. The PCT have sent the list of Creedy's patients with the conditions we specified. Well, that's one we expected. Valentine Desmond of Rectory Close would have been a candidate for Sonera if someone would have paid for it.
We need to see him.
Quickly, I'd think.
Yes. What about viscerant and vesicant?
There are 4 or 5 bladder patients. We'll just have to work through those. There's no obvious lead. But the bowel ones... Ah, here it is. Yes, Mortimer Daniel, 1942 to 2010, registered to the same Westbury address as D. Mortimer. Where are we on bringing her in?
Soon. We found her at her sister's.
Is that in Scotland?
Yeah. How did you...
It makes sense.
Are you Deirdre, commonly known as D. Mortimer of 34 Sandpit Lane, Westbury?
Yes.
And you have been employed since April 1994 as dispensary manager at the Westbury Medical Centre in Westbury?
Yes.
DCI Duncan?
I'm now going to have to ask you some questions you may find distressing. Your husband, Daniel Mortimer, died in January of this year. Was it in the course of his illness that you became aware of the drug Viscerant, and if so, how?
OMYP have a website.
You're referring to the patient support group called One More Year, please?
The website's international. All the patients in America with what Dan had, they were raving about this new thing. People who'd been given months turned into years, so, of course, we asked Dr. Creedy, but he said they wouldn't pay for it here.
Here being the Westbury PCT area. Mrs. Mortimer nodded. Mrs. Mortimer, I have your husband's death certificate. He died at a house in Scotland, which I believe belongs to your sister?
Yes.
And where he seems to have been registered as a permanent resident, at least for the purposes of enrolling at a local GP surgery.
Look, when you love someone and they tell you he won't see spring, if there was a medicine on the moon that would have helped him, I'd have got a rocket from somewhere.
Is Viscerant licensed for use in Scotland?
Will you tell me why someone should be sentenced to death because of their address? Anyone with anything about them would have done the same.
When your husband sadly died in January, was there a supply of unused Viscerant? Mrs. Mortimer nodded. I put it to you that you deliberately placed those strong and unprescribed drugs in a packet intended for collection by Imelda Sharp. Mrs. Mortimer declined to respond. Mrs. Mortimer, there was a recent demonstration outside the medical centre by members of OMYP against the rationing of cancer drugs. Lady Patricia Carey became involved in an altercation with the protesters. I take it that it was either then or subsequently that you became aware of her part, as a member of the local PCT licensing committee, in refusing to authorise the drug Vesicant.
She more or less boasted that it had been her. We called her Lady Death.
I'm assuming that you got the supply of the Vesicant you gave to Patricia Carey from one of the relatives in the Westbury branch of OMYP? Mrs. Mortimer nodded. I'm going to need you to give me the name of the patient concerned.
No, they didn't know what I was doing. I told them if they gave me the unused packets, I'd get rid of them.
Any more questions, Detective Sergeant?
Did you enter on the computerised booking system a false appointment for a doctor to make a home visit to Patricia Carey?
Mrs. Mortimer nodded. OK, I think we can leave it there.
We haven't asked about the consultant, Mr. Tanner Harding.
Oh, no. Mrs. Mortimer wasn't directly involved in that. And there it is, parked neatly on the drive, the car that killed the consultant.
Oh, God, isn't that an undertaker's van outside?
I think it is.
Another death, Gov.
Yes, although on this occasion, from what we laughably call natural causes.
Mr. Desmond Valentine, we assume?
We do. After 2 patients killed by taking cancer drugs they didn't need. 1 killed, so OMIP would say, by not taking the ones he did need.
Of course, I'm well aware that when you first came to see me here, I was the prime suspect for killing the 2 patients.
We have to consider every possibility.
Especially after recent cases, yes. What bothered me was that I knew that I hadn't done it, but I couldn't possibly work out who had. Or even what had been done. The system doesn't think of patients or dispensary managers behaving that way. Probably, ironically, because doctors are seen as the gods.
What a country this is. Full of people pretending they live somewhere else so they can get into a school, so they can live a little longer. Well, to some extent, I sympathise. Empathise. Actually, my husband died.
I'm sorry.
He must see so many.
Yes, but every single one of them feels like a defeat. But there's another irony. Why were there incomplete courses of Viscerant and Vesican floating around the system? Because they didn't work. Or at least they did nothing to alter the outcome of these cases. The relatives will say, if only they'd been available earlier. But it may just as well prove that the licensing authorities were right. The pills weren't worth the money. Look, I don't want anyone to die. It's against my principles. But if OMIP wanted to kill anyone, they should have gone to Switzerland. Not to kill themselves, but how strange the way that country turns up in all our health debates. But to take out a few of the greedy drugs manufacturers. If they didn't charge so much, we would be able to prescribe their drugs as widely as we should.
Take unto himself the soul of our dear sister Patricia here departed. We therefore commit her body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Before we complete the interment, Oliver wished to say a few words.
Thank you, yes. When my mother became Lady Patricia, she was obviously pleased but a little disappointed, because Doctor was the title that meant most to her. On the day I left to start medical training, she told me that the most important words in medicine were primum non nocere, first do no harm. My family will never recover from the fact that Mummy died from harm being done to her. But we have the consolation of knowing that she always lived up throughout her medical career to that short motto. It was not her fault that she was living in a time of, forgive me if my Latin is rusty, primum demetior argentum.
Very touching words about your mother, Dr. Carey.
Thank you for coming, and for writing to me about the timing of the trial.
There's one tiny thing I need to ask you. We took your prints to eliminate you from the people who handled your mother's drug packets.
Yes. Where is this going?
I don't know if you know that this whole investigation began with a letter to the Met suggesting that the death of another patient might be suspicious.
I didn't.
Ah. Because your prints were on the envelope.
I really can't explain that.
I think we probably can. Did your mother ever give you letters to post?
Later on, she got out less and less.
You said your mother became worried someone might try to kill her. She clearly had similar fears about Imelda Sharp.
And as it turns out, she wasn't going to Lally. God, or whatever, rest her soul.
Yes. That Latin phrase you ended on. First...
The British doctor's motto from now on, I fear. First check the money.
In The Power of Life and Death by Mark Lawson, Kate Duncan was played by Hayden Gwynn and Rob Lorenzo by Lloyd Thomas. Hermione Sharp was Abigail McKern, Dame Imelda Sharp, Honor Blackman, Dr. Tom Creedy, Nick Dunning, Dr. Ollie Carey, Chris Mahallam, Sue Wells, Abigail McGibbon, and Dee Mortimer, Stella McCusker. Jeremy Vine played himself. The Power of Life and Death was directed in Belfast by Owen O'Callaghan.